Chapter 158. Second update. Wushan will continue to work hard. Third update. Brothers and sisters who still have monthly votes, please support Wushan. The pursuers have closed the distance between them in a short day. Please everyone. I really need everyone's support for my new book. Thank you. Hiss hiss hiss. Just as Qin Hao arrived at the edge of the endless sea, a terrifying and irresistible restriction strangely appeared. It directly swallowed the origin energy that Qin Hao released and he fell from the sky. I can't fly indeed. Qin Hao did not resist and allowed his body to fall into the dangerous sea. Poof! The moment he dived into the sea, Qin Hao's mind immediately spread out and blended into the gloomy and cold seawater. His body suddenly turned into a swimming fish and quickly dived down. At the same time, he restrained his own aura and spread out his powerful perception. The endless sea was extremely dangerous. If one wanted to successfully pass through, not only did they need powerful strength, they also needed absolute intelligence. Even the top experts on the Black Tower's steel would not be able to freely move through the endless demonic beasts just by relying on their strength. The demonic beasts here, especially in the core area, were all at the 9th grade martial ancestor realm. Qin Hao was not arrogant enough to fight against demonic beasts at the 9th grade martial ancestor realm. This information was obtained by all the disciples who had obtained the right to enter the 100 Empire ranking when they refined the tokens. It included the map of the endless sea with a circumference of tens of thousands of miles, the demonic beasts that appeared in the major areas, the existing spiritual herbs, treasures, historical remains, and so on. Although it was not specific, it was very helpful in reaching the core area of the endless sea and passing through this dangerous place. Otherwise, at least half of the disciples would lose their lives in the endless sea, not to mention passing through it. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. When Qin Hao dived into the sea, the genius disciples from the various dynasties also dived into the sea. Some were alone, some were in groups of 2 or 3, and some were in groups of 3 or 5. Most of the time, the aura of a lone disciple was extremely powerful. They were definitely superior martial ancestor realm. None of them had just entered the martial ancestor realm. Not to mention Qin Hao, who had not even reached the martial ancestor realm. Qin Hao sensed the aura of the demonic beasts under the water and rapidly moved forward. His goal was to use his fastest speed to approach the spatial zone of the ruins that was 3,000 miles away from the edge of the sea. There were countless relics in this area. It was one of the treasure lands that one had to pass through in the endless sea. According to the information in the token, as long as the cultivators had enough opportunities and luck, they could enter these relics. The benefits that could be obtained were naturally astonishing. Of course, they had to be able to arrive in time. Otherwise, they would have no chance if all the treasures were snatched up by others. Because of this, Qin Hao did not delay at all after the test was completed and rushed over as fast as he could. However, at this moment, Qin Hao, who had concealed his aura and avoided all the demonic beasts, suddenly felt a huge pressure. The aura of the demonic beasts swept over from all directions. Although it was only the aftermath, it caused a terrifying undercurrent in the depths of the sea. Even Qin Hao was dragged into it. Demonic beast tide. Qin Hao thought in his heart. His eyes shone with a bright light. Immediately, he released his aura again and rushed over at an astonishing speed. The demonic beast tide in the endless sea was an existence that could not be avoided. Any cultivator who wanted to go deep had to face it. Unlike the scattered demonic beasts, who could rely on their perception and concealing their aura to avoid it. The aura in front of him clearly indicated that many cultivators were obstructed in the demonic beast tide. For Qin Hao, this was undoubtedly an opportunity to borrow power. Otherwise, it would be 100 times more difficult to kill his way out of the encirclement with his own strength. As Qin Hao gradually approached, the seawater had turned blood red and was filled with a strong smell of blood. With a loud rumbling sound, the seawater was rolling over and over in a terrifying manner. Rays of bright origin power flashed in the water. There were dozens of young men and women who were fiercely hunting the demonic beasts. As for the demonic beasts, what made Qin Hao surprised was that they were actually python-like monsters. Their bodies were covered with scales, each of which was a foot long. When they were all opened up, they were like pieces of sharp blades, ferocious and terrifying. Especially that bloody mouth. As it swallowed and spat, it turned the seawater into a terrifying attack. When it got close, the sharp fangs in its bloody mouth were incomparably sharp. They were like jagged swords, opening and closing wide. They wanted to directly devour a cultivator. If one was bitten, not to mention a martial ancestor, even a martial sage would be directly bitten into pieces. Fortunately, there were countless demonic beasts and they formed an inescapable net. However, the battle strength of each demonic beast was only at the level of an ordinary second-grade martial ancestor. The strength of the cultivators was obviously higher. Especially the figures that rushed forward alone. Their cultivation was extremely high. With a flash of their swords, a demonic beast was cut into pieces. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the instant that Qin Hao rushed into their range, the densely packed demonic beasts immediately pounced over. Very good. His eyes flashed. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In an instant, 9 cold rays of light shot out as fast as lightning. His body was like a swimming fish, advancing at an even more shocking speed. At this moment, the essence of ancient Chinese martial arts was used to the extreme. Every blade hit a vital point in the demonic beast's head, directly penetrating it. This terrifying hunting speed and advancing speed caused the surrounding cultivators who noticed Qin Hao to reveal a shocked expression. What shocked them even more was that Qin Hao's aura had not even reached the level of a martial ancestor. How was this possible? However, they immediately understood. To be able to obtain the qualifications to enter the 100 Empire ranking, if one did not have the battle strength of a martial ancestor, it was not very possible. However, Qin Hao's battle strength clearly exceeded his cultivation level by too much. That was why the crowd was speechless. Seeing Qin Hao's figure drifting strangely and rushing further and further away at an astonishing speed, many of these cultivators were envious, jealous, and anxious. However, there was nothing they could do. Everyone knew that this was a race against time. Whoever was faster would be the first to reach the area of the ruins. Want to help? Only a fool would help you. This was a competition. It would be a blessing if they did not cause trouble, let alone help. Want to take advantage of the situation? We are holding back so many demonic beasts. Do you want to die if you go first by yourself? Seeing that Qin Hao was about to rush out of the group of demonic beasts and that no one would be able to stop his advance, Qin Hao passed by a youth who was also at the forefront and was madly hunting demonic beasts. Under the protection of his aura, the youth coldly stared at Qin Hao and said loudly. At the same time, without hesitation, he slashed his sword towards Qin Hao. Caught off guard, Qin Hao hurriedly raised the 5 elements golden sword. His eyes flashed with a hint of anger as he swung his sword to meet the attack. Clang! Rumble! The terrifying sword light collided with each other, and Qin Hao was immediately sent tumbling backwards in the surging, blood-red sea water. The energy contained in the young man's sword radiance was several times more than that of Qin Hao. With only one move, Qin Hao's qi and blood surged. He felt something sweet in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. This had something to do with Qin Hao's haste to meet the attack. However, Qin Hao knew that even if he was prepared, the result of the collision would be no suspense. Moreover, the young man was also fighting against the horde of demonic beasts. It was just a casual move. Humph. You don't know what death is. If you are not dead, obediently hunt with us. Otherwise, I, Zhou Shao, will kill you first. The young man revealed his own name, and spoke with an arrogant expression. The treasured sword in his hand was like cutting vegetables as he killed the fearless demon beasts. Whenever his sword struck out, there would surely be a demon beast that would be violently chopped into 2. However, the densely packed demon beasts caused his speed to be unable to achieve Qin Hao's swift speed of moving forward like a fish. Zhou Shao, a disciple of the Xiongfeng Empire, a 5th-grade martial grandmaster. Among the 5 disciples of the Great Wind Empire, he was the weakest. During the 3 months he had been home, Chen Hao had received the basic information of all the disciples on the 100 Empire ranking from Mu Qing. Just by looking at his appearance, Chen Hao naturally did not know who he was. However, when the young man revealed his name, Chen Hao's information clearly appeared in his mind. Moreover, the ranking on the Black Pagoda tablet was 164. Chen Hao did not want to cause trouble. However, he did not expect that someone would come looking for trouble at the beginning of his training. Moreover, it was an expert who was hundreds of ranks higher than him. If they were on the ground and there were no demonic beasts, Chen Hao would have to endure it for the time being if he was not an idiot. However, after hearing Zhou Xiao's words, Chen Hao's eyes flashed with a cold murderous intent. Swoosh! Swoosh! The 9 flying daggers circled around Chen Hao's body like flickering lights and passing shadows. The heads of the demonic beasts that wanted to take the opportunity to swallow Chen Hao exploded one after another. Chen Hao, however, raised his sword, his figure strangely drifted, and rushed towards Zhou Xiao as fast as lightning. I'd like to see who will kill who. At the same time, Chen Hao's cold voice rippled in the water, causing the cultivators who were gloating to be slightly surprised. Everyone could see that Chen Hao's realm and combat strength were far from Zhou Xiao's. They were not on the same level at all. Being able to break through the demonic beast's encirclement and advance quickly was completely relying on the 9 flying daggers that were controlled to the extreme and the unique movement technique that seemed to be specially cultivated for underwater combat. In everyone's opinion, Chen Hao could only swallow the humiliation, kill the demonic beasts, and slowly break out of the encirclement. However, at this moment, Chen Hao's actions and words were about to compete with Zhou Xiao's. You reckless thing. Originally, I wanted you to be a dog. If you do well, I'll spare your dog life. If you don't, I'll send you to the Western Paradise. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Go to hell. Aurora cut. Seeing Chen Hao approaching quickly, Zhou Xiao said disdainfully. As he spoke, he slashed out with his sword. Hiss. At this moment, the dazzling sword light was condensed to the extreme and swept horizontally in front of Zhou Xiao. Suddenly, a light curtain appeared in front of Zhou Xiao. Wherever it passed, countless demonic beasts were directly cut into upper and lower halves, as if the sea and everything in front of them were divided into upper and lower halves. It attacked Chen Hao's waist as fast as lightning. Without doubt, if Chen Hao could not block it, he would be cut in half at the waist like the demonic beasts. While Chen Hao was shocked, he roared and instantly pushed his strength to the extreme. At this moment, especially in the water, it was obviously impossible for Chen Hao to dodge the light curtain in a flash no matter how fast he was. He could only face it head-on. At this moment, Chen Hao did not hold back at all. The vigorous Yuanli and spiritual energy merged together, and in an instant, man and sword became one, suddenly turning into a sharp spiral. All the strength was concentrated at the tip, and at an extremely terrifying speed, fiercely drilled out and attacked Zhou Xiao. Second update. Please vote for me. Thank you. Chapter 159. Third update, looking for monthly votes. Boom. Boom. Seeing that Chen Hao had broken through his Aurora slash, Zhou Xiao's eyes flashed with surprise. Immediately, his expression became ruthless. He no longer held back and suddenly pushed his strength to the limit, die. His sword pierced towards the incoming Chen Hao at lightning speed. The brilliant sword light was condensed with the berserk energy of a rank 5 martial ancestor. When the surrounding cultivators saw this scene, they were already certain that this little martial emperor who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth was going to be smashed into pieces by Zhou Xiao's sword. However, boom. 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 A series of violent energy explosions sounded. Chen Hao's body, which seemed to be unaffected by any water waves and was rotating at high speed, was like a hot knife through butter. Zhou Zhao's condensed and terrifying sword light all changed direction and overflowed, still approaching Zhou Xiao with irresistible force. Ding! 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 What was more surprising was that Zhou Xiao, who had pushed his yuan power to the limit, still had time to condense a second attack. Chen Hao, who was one with the sword, had already made contact with Zhou Zhao's treasured sword. Ding! 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 The crisp sound of metal colliding was accompanied by fragments of the broken sword flying out. Boom! Puff! The sword pierced through Zhou Zhao's protective qi and directly into his heart. Under the high-speed rotation of the golden sword, a bloody hole as thick as a thigh suddenly appeared. Ah! Zhou Xiao let out a shrill scream in horror. The vitality of his body disappeared in an instant. His eyes were wide open as he stared at Chen Hao with a cold expression. Unwillingness, humiliation, anger, regret, all kinds of complicated expressions filled his eyes. Blood had already spilled out of his mouth. With the last of his strength, he said with great difficulty, "Who are you?" "Ask the King of Hell." Chen Hao said coldly. Under the gaze of Zhou Xiao, who was on the verge of death, he reached out and took Zhou Zhao's storage ring. After that, he cleanly smashed Zhou Zhao's head with a punch. Under the stunned eyes of the crowd, he rushed forward like lightning with 9 sharp flying knives revolving around him. What a powerful treasured sword! The crowd who were watching the battle while killing the demonic beasts were all shocked. No one had expected that Zhou Xiao would be the one to die. Aside from being shocked by Chen Hao's methods, what shocked him even more was the golden sword in Chen Hao's hand. Even though there was a huge difference in energy between Zhou Zhao's sword and Chen Hao's, Chen Hao had still managed to slice Zhou Zhao's sword into pieces as if it were tofu. Furthermore, Chen Hao had easily broken through Zhou Zhao's protective aura and killed him. Charge! Charge out! Chase after that brat! In one of the 5-man teams, a youth with a powerful aura transmitted his voice to the other 4. That sword is definitely a supreme-grade spiritual weapon. If I can get my hands on it, I will definitely have a place in the top 10 of the 100 Empire rankings. Moreover, since he has this supreme-grade spiritual weapon, he must have many other treasures. Plus, he just got the storage ring from that idiot. Hee hee. We'll all get some points. It's the law of the jungle. Don't worry about it anymore. If you want to join a powerful sect, you can only do it by hook or by crook. I wonder which empire that disciple is from. He actually has such a treasured sword. He must have a deep relationship with a powerful sect. If you encounter him, you must not provoke him. This sort of person is not someone we can afford to provoke. Even more people were thinking about Chen Hao's identity from the treasured sword that Chen Hao had revealed. A rank 5 martial ancestor realm cultivator had been defeated by him with a single move. They did not have the ability to snatch the treasures. Furthermore, how could someone who possessed such a treasured sword be an ordinary person? Judging from his age, he should be younger than us. The color of his origin power, he should only be a rank 8 martial emperor. There are not many people with such a low cultivation that possess such battle power. I remember, the number 1 empire, the Sky Tyrant Empire, has a rank 8 martial emperor by the name of Leng Yihan. He obtained the qualifications to join the 100 empire rankings. Among the 5 disciples of the Sky Tyrant Empire, he is ranked 3rd, 4th and 5th. They are all rank 6 martial ancestor realm. However, he's 19 years old. He doesn't seem to be one. There's also a person from the Xuanwu Empire by the name of Chen Hao. He's also a rank 8 martial emperor. He obtained the qualifications to join the 100 empire rankings with the status of number 1. The second is a rank 2 martial ancestor realm. His age doesn't seem to be the same either. He seems to be 17 years old. That Chen Hao is only 15 years old. Leng Yihan. It's very possible. It's impossible for the Xuanwu Empire's Chen Hao to be one of them. The Xuanwu Empire is only a lower-ranked empire. How could they have such a profound background? A top-quality spirit artifact is something that even the inner court disciples of rank 7 and 8 sects cannot possess. Some people's age cannot be determined by their appearance, much less a difference of 1 or 2 years. It's very possible that he's the Sky Tyrant Empire's Leng Yihan. No one knew that although Qinhao's 5 elements golden swords were very good, in their hands, they were not much stronger than ordinary spirit artifacts. It was only one of the 5 elements swords. How could it be a top-quality spirit artifact? Even if the other 4 swords and the dark yellow ring were added, it would at most be a high-quality spirit artifact. A rank 5 martial ancestor realm is nothing more than this. Borrowing strength to fight strength, condensing strength into a point, diverting strength, using strength to the extreme, and then borrowing strength to merge with everything in the world. I can actually kill him so easily. It seems that even I have underestimated my own strength. Qinhao's lips curled into an excited smile as he thought to himself. In this battle, Qinhao had originally planned to be seriously injured. He did not expect that the battle would end so easily. Especially this time, it was the first time that Qinhao had used the mental cultivation method of the carving technique, merging with everything in the world. Although it seemed easy on the surface and the result was equally easy, in the moment of the sparks, Qinhao was multitasking. His mind was operating at a high level. Not only did he merge himself into the water so that the water did not have any resistance to him, he also used the fastest speed to sense the aura of the sword the moment he came into contact with Zhou Zhao's sword. He directly cut it into pieces like tofu. Then, he condensed all the energy in his body into a point and broke through Zhou Zhao's protective qi to kill him. It could be said that if there was a slight mistake in any part, Qinhao would not have been able to win the battle so easily. However, Qinhao did not know that in this battle, although he did not announce his name, his real identity was almost guessed. Of course, even if it was guessed, it would not be a big deal. After all, this was an experience where the weak were prey to the strong. Qinhao also did not know that a genius disciple named Leng Yihan from the Sky Tyrant Empire, which ranked first among the hundreds of empires, had become his scapegoat. Whoosh! 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 As time passed, more and more cultivators joined the ranks of the first batch of demonic beasts. Although the demonic beasts were densely packed, they were not powerful. Under the horrifying killing of 3,000 to 4,000 cultivators, the number of demonic beasts gradually decreased. Countless disciples with powerful cultivations also took the lead to rush out of the densely packed demonic beasts area and advanced at the fastest speed. Yang Fan, Ni Jianpain, and Li Yifeng and Tan Tai Lian, who had formed a 2-man team, were also scattered among the demonic beasts. Although their cultivation realms were not high, Yang Fan, Ni Jianpain, and Li Yifeng's battle strength was ranked above average. They did not encounter any trouble, but their speed was a little slow. Qinhao, however, became the vanguard in his area of dozens of miles. He was the first to rush out of the demonic beasts, and with the powerful speed of merging into the water, he avoided the powerful solitary demonic beasts and advanced at an astonishing speed. At the same time, in each area, there were disciples with powerful cultivations who took the lead in breaking through. After half a day, even though Qinhao had used the special ability of merging into the heavens and earth, which consumed a lot of his spiritual strength and original energy, he finally saw the light of dawn. Far away, hundreds of miles away, the seawater in front of him had been dyed with rays of light. With the movement of the undercurrent, it shone with rays of colorful light. The relic area was finally in front of him. Qinhao suddenly became energetic again and pushed his speed to the limit. As the distance got closer and closer, Qinhao, with his keen perception, avoided the demonic beasts emitting powerful auras. Finally, he saw an underwater world shrouded in a layer of powerful bounded domain. It was bumpy, rugged, and there were mountains. These mountains were not tall, but they were undulating. Compared with the mountains on the land, these mountains were extremely strange in shape. Not only were they colorful, but they were also shining faintly. Whoosh! The moment he approached the bounded domain, Qinhao activated the energy of the token and pressed his palm on the bounded domain. Suddenly, a bright light wrapped around him, and Qin Hao appeared in this magical underwater world. Hu! Qin Hao immediately inhaled and exhaled a few mouthfuls of fresh air filled with medicinal fragrance. His eyes shone with excitement as he looked around. This underwater world, like a crystal palace, according to the information recorded, spanned thousands of miles and extended thousands of miles vertically. In addition to countless spiritual herbs and many relics, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was extremely dense. It was the relay station for all the disciples to replenish and recover. As long as they kept a low profile, it would be difficult for them to be attacked by cultivators. Of course, if there were conflicts between empires, it would be hard to say. Just like the information that Mu Qing sent to them, the information of the other empires was simple, but the information of the neighboring empires was very detailed. Including the appearance, realm, and combat strength of every disciple. If they encountered them, they would kill them if they had the strength, and if they did not, they would avoid them. Qin Hao was not surprised that Mu Qing could obtain such information. Every empire had its own intelligence system. If Mu Qing could obtain it, so could the other empires. Driven by benefits, which empire did not have a few spies? Do you need help? There are so many spiritual herbs. At this moment, the voice of the treasure-hunting sword spirit sounded. Ever since Qin Hao did not allow it to appear casually, the treasure-hunting sword spirit would not alarm Qin Hao even if it secretly sensed the periphery. At this moment, the treasure-hunting sword spirit could not resist the strong aura of spiritual herbs. Of course I do. This won't affect my cultivation anyway. In the future, I don't need to remind you of such things. Pick the most precious spiritual herbs and start. Before long, there will definitely be looting. The one who strikes first has the advantage, and the one who strikes last will suffer. Hurry! Qin Hao said straightforwardly. He did not even care about recovering his cultivation. He swallowed hundreds of level 8 spiritual pills and quickly followed the treasure-hunting sword spirit's senses. As for whether one could enter the relics or not, it depended on one's luck. Even the treasure-hunting sword spirit could not sense it, let alone Qin Hao. Therefore, he could not force it. Chapter 160. First update. Do you still have any monthly votes? Today, there will be a fourth update. I only hope that everyone will vote for Dark Mountain with your monthly votes. Writing requires passion and excitement. After yesterday's single chapter, my brothers and sisters have given Dark Mountain confidence. Thank you. Brothers and sisters, please give Dark Mountain even more passion. Today, I will fight. I will fight without stopping for even a moment. Fight for the fourth chapter. Please, my friends who still have monthly votes, vote for Dark Mountain. Right now, I have 12 votes. When the second update comes, can I have 8 more? 10th. Elder Wu. He is Qin Hao. The 10th person to enter the ruins is Qin Hao. Auspicious clouds floated in the sky above the core region of the Endless Sea. On each cloud, there was a cultivator sitting cross-legged. There were white-haired old men with youthful faces and young disciples. There were more than 100 of them, and each of them had an extremely powerful presence. At this moment, these cultivators who were standing on clouds and hovering in the air were all staring at the round mirror image that was emitting a faint light about 1,000 feet below them. The scene flashing in the mirror image was the scene when Qin Hao had just stepped into the underwater world. Amazing! What a pity! When an old man heard the female disciple's words, he was slightly taken aback. Then, he sent a message to her as well. His tone carried a hint of helplessness and regret. This female disciple was Dongfang Ting. Elder Wu, why is it a pity? Dongfang Ting, who was originally excited, asked with a hint of confusion when she heard the old man's words. The stronger he performs, the harder it will be for us to win him over. With his talent and battle prowess, if he keeps a low profile, with your relationship with him, we still have hope. But now, the 10th person to enter the first ruins. Forget about the 6th rank Flying Sword clan, just look at the expression of Zhu Bo, the outer sect elder of the 7th rank Celestial Pinnacle sect. Besides, there are still 4 6th rank and 2 7th rank sects that have yet to appear. At that moment, the sects that were paying attention to the trials of Chen Hao and the other disciples on the 100 Empire ranking were mostly the 1st to 4th rank sections. The only powerful sects were the 6th rank Flying Sword clan and the 7th rank Celestial Pinnacle sect. Oh. Dongfang Ting's expression froze. Then, she nodded and stopped talking. However, the expression on her face did not show any signs of depression. In fact, when she mentioned Chen Hao to Elder Wu, she didn't actually want Chen Hao to join the star-picking sect. Instead, she was simply surprised by Chen Hao's performance. Beside Dongfang Ting and the old man, there were 2 other disciples who were dressed in the same way as Dongfang Ting. Clearly, they were the disciples that the star-seizing sect had sent to the empires they were related to. There were over 100 cultivators present, but in reality, there were only over 20 sections. Xian Xian, a disciple of the Flying Sword sect not far from Dongfang Ting, frowned slightly. Obviously, she was starting to worry about Chen Hao's high-profile performance and shocking abilities. He was too dazzling. Even though she was from a rank 6 sect, she was starting to worry. Fortunately, this was just the beginning. As long as her performance wasn't too outstanding and her ranking wasn't very high, she still had a lot of hope. Chen Hao is a little strange, as Chen Hao followed the fluctuations of the treasure-hunting sword's spirit and advanced rapidly. The treasure-hunting sword's spirit suddenly spoke in Chen Hao's mind. Strange? Our every move seems to be under surveillance. Moreover, I was too excited just now and didn't notice that the aura of the spirit herbs here is extremely varied and of different attributes. So what? That means that the spirit herbs here aren't natural. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so mixed. Those sects must have specially placed them here for you to obtain. That feeling of being watched doesn't exist in the sea. This means that the boundary space we're in now is definitely under the surveillance of those sects. If we go straight for the target and plunder without restraint, I'm afraid we'll attract their attention. You decide for yourself. Hearing the treasure-hunting sword's spirit, Chen Hao frowned slightly, but his eyes immediately sparkled. Don't worry so much. Let's not be too deliberate and just go straight to the point. It doesn't make sense if we don't take the benefits that are given to us, all right. More than 10 minutes later, Chen Hao, who was flying at an astonishing speed, appeared on top of a strangely shaped small mountain. Soon, he arrived in front of a cave halfway up the mountain. There was a thick and strange medicinal fragrance. Chen Hao could clearly sense it without the treasure-hunting sword's spirit's reminder. According to the information he had obtained, there were no demon beasts in this area of the ruins. Therefore, Chen Hao did not stop at all and stepped directly into the cave. After going in for 100 meters, a strange small tree appeared before Chen Hao's eyes. It grew out of the hard rock and was only as tall as a person. However, it was filled with boundless vitality. The leaves were actually 3 different colors. On the small tree, there were 36 fruits. They were also 3-colored fruits, and they were the size of a fist. Red, white, and green intersected with each other and looked extremely bewitching and gorgeous. Resurrection fruit. Chen Hao stared at the strange 3-colored fruit, and the information in the token suddenly appeared in his mind. There was a trace of surprise on his face as he said, "Good stuff. 36 of them, enough for me to use for a while." The resurrection fruit was the main ingredient in refining the Great Restore pill. 1 fruit could be used to refine a Great Restore pill. This kind of pill belonged to the category of pills with special functions. There was a big difference between it and ordinary pills. Ordinary spiritual medicine and pills contained boundless and pure origin energy. It was used by cultivators to refine their origin energy. However, the Great Restore pill was a spiritual medicine that could allow cultivators below the 6th stage of martial ancestor realm to instantly recover to their peak state. It could completely restore their essence, energy, and spirit. If one directly swallowed the resurrection fruit, they would suffer a little due to the impurities in it. However, the effect would not be inferior to the Great Restore pill. For someone like Qin Hao who had an abnormal body constitution, there was no difference at all. Qi! Qi! Qin Hao's palm grabbed the air. Immediately, 36 ripe resurrection fruits turned into a string and flew in front of him. He put 35 of them into the storage space of the Xianhuang ring and directly swallowed one. Boom! The moment the resurrection fruit entered his dantian, Qin Hao's mind shook. Suddenly, a boundless vitality, origin energy, and mental energy magically and violently emerged from his dantian. Accompanied by a pain that was negligible to Qin Hao's exhaustion for half a day began to quickly recover. In just a few minutes, the medicinal power had completely integrated into his body. However, what made Qin Hao slightly surprised was that one resurrection fruit could not restore him to his peak state. My body is really abnormal. A 6th-stage martial ancestor realm can recover to its peak state, but I can only recover to 90%. Could it be that my absolute power has surpassed that of a 6th-stage martial ancestor? Qin Hao thought to himself. He shrugged proudly and said, I forgot. I haven't seen what good things are in that guy's storage ring. Thinking of this, Qin Hao immediately took out the storage ring that he had obtained from killing Zhou Xiao. Since Zhou Xiao was dead, the aura left in the storage ring had completely disappeared, so Qin Hao could easily refine it. He saw the items in the storage ring and quickly counted them. To Qin Hao's surprise, there were at least 1,000,000 level 8 elixirs. In addition to the elixirs, there were 3 fist-sized crystals that emitted a milky white light. Qin Hao had not seen this kind of thing before, but he could feel that it contained an extremely pure and boundless spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It was many times more powerful than a level 8 elixir. Could it be a primordial crystal stone? Qin Hao frowned slightly and guessed. Primordial crystal stone was something that could only be used after entering the innate realm, which was the martial saint realm. The bodies of disciples below the martial arts grandmaster realm could not bear the violent energy contained in it. Even the masters of the innate realm were only willing to use it when breaking through the barrier. It was extremely precious. Although the energy was violent, it was extremely pure. It could be used directly without a lot of refining. It was undoubtedly the best treasure for breaking through the barrier. It could condense the most powerful energy in a short period of time. Yes. It's a primordial crystal stone. It seems that the disciples of these powerful empires are indeed not comparable to your Xuanwu Empire. The wealth of any one of them is comparable to several of yours. The treasure-hunting sword spirit said, Qin Hao, how about killing a few more? It's faster than me taking you to find elixirs. That's a good idea. But I, Qin Hao, am not a murderous devil. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If they want to die, I don't mind killing them and taking their treasures. Well, let's continue. By the way, do you think the relics here were specially set up by the masters of those sects? Otherwise, why would they be concentrated in this area? It must be. Although I can't sense the existence of the relics, there's no ancient aura here. Rather than calling it a relic, it's better to say that it's a space specially condensed for you to improve. If I'm not wrong, the 100 Empire ranking competition that happens every 2 years must pass through the Endless Sea. How can there be so many elixirs and relics appearing repeatedly? Hearing the treasure-hunting sword spirit's words, Qin Hao pondered for a moment before setting off again. After walking out of the cave, he directly flew into the air. He seemed to be walking aimlessly, but the range was very small. He was still moving quickly in the direction that the treasure-hunting sword spirit sensed. It's that kid. Far away, 5 figures were flying in the air. After seeing Qin Hao flying in the air, one of the youths immediately exclaimed in surprise. Follow him. This kid has a treasure sword. The 5 of us have to work together to easily kill him. Otherwise, even I would have to put in a lot of effort. These 5 people were the disciples who had evil intentions after seeing Qin Hao kill Zhou Xiao. Among them, the disciple who wanted to obtain Qin Hao's treasure sword to enter the top 10 of the 100 Empire ranking had a cultivation of rank 7 Martial Ancestor Realm. As for the other 4, 2 were rank 6 Martial Ancestor Realm and 2 were rank 5 Martial Ancestor Realm. With such a lineup, it was not hard to imagine that they were definitely one of the empires that ranked extremely high in the 100 Empire ranking. They were even more powerful than the Xiongfeng Empire that Zhou Xiao was from. Any one of these 5 people would be considered an expert in the 100 Empire ranking. Not to mention that they were united. As for this team, it was obvious that they had the mentality of killing and robbing. That was why they were acting like this. Otherwise, how could they not fly alone? In reality, that was indeed the case. Not only did they have the mentality of killing and robbing, but they would also kill experts that might cause competition when they saw them. Such people existed in every 100 Empire ranking. However, there were not many of them. When the 5 people discovered Qin Hao, whose cultivation was far inferior to theirs, discovered their existence almost at the same time. Qin Hao had an impression of these 5 people. They were the ones he had seen when he was fighting against Zhou Xiao. They were also at the forefront. Furthermore, they were the strongest team among all the cultivators at that time. Wushan, continue to fight. Today, we will explode. Begging for monthly votes. Recommendation votes. Vote for Wushan. Thank you. Chapter 161. Second update. Dark Mountain will continue to fight for the 3rd and 4th updates. Brothers and sisters with monthly votes and recommendation votes, please vote for Dark Mountain. It was not surprising that these 5 people could appear near Qin Hao. After all, they had rushed over together with Qin Hao. Moreover, their strength was obvious. It was natural for them to arrive so quickly. Therefore, Qin Hao did not care. His body moved as fast as lightning, following the waves in his mind and disappearing into the horizon. Something is not right. More than 10 minutes later, Qin Hao entered a valley surrounded by mountains. In front of him appeared hundreds of level 9 elixirs that contained the energy of the 5 elements. Qin Hao's body suddenly froze. He frowned slightly and a trace of seriousness appeared on his calm face. At the same time, the voice of the treasure-hunting sword's spirit sounded in Qin Hao's mind. Whoosh! Whoosh! Hiss! Just as Qin Hao stopped and looked up at the sky, 5 people suddenly broke through the air. The distance of thousands of meters was instantly crossed. The fastest person directly shot out a sharp sword light that shot out from a distance of hundreds of meters. It seemed to tear through the void and emitted a terrifying pressure. It directly locked onto Qin Hao's vital point on his back. The sudden attack made Qin Hao's expression change. He quickly turned around, but the terrifying sword light was already in front of him. There was no way to avoid it. At this critical moment, although Qin Hao was shocked by the opponent's powerful cultivation, he did not panic at all. With a thought, the powerful merged energy condensed into a point in front of him. At the same time, with a loud bang, his feet exploded and his body flashed back. Boom! With a loud bang, the energy shield that Qin Hao had condensed collapsed. The terrifying sword light only paused for a moment and slowed down a little. Then, it once again chased after Qin Hao. It was a long story, but in fact, it was only a moment. However, this little bit of time was enough for Qin Hao. Whoosh! When Qin Hao's explosively retreating figure was about to be caught up by the sword light again, he actually turned into a wisp of wind and fluttered away from the sword light's attack. Hiss! Hiss! At this moment, people from the other 4 directions rushed over as fast as lightning. You want to kill me? Qin Hao's figure drifted like a ghost, causing all the attacks to miss. Terrifying explosions sounded around him, but his cold voice rang out. Pa pa! The 5 silhouettes landed one after another within 100 feet of Qin Hao. The youth who had come first, with Qin Hao as their leader, actually smiled and clapped his hands. The true essence of wind, you do have some skills. However, just based on this, it's not enough. Brat, if you don't want to die, then obediently hand over that sword and I can let you live. Who are you people? Chen Hao sensed an enormous dangerous aura. Chen Hao had already noticed the cultivations of these 5 people. None of them were inferior to Zhou Xiao. Especially the person who spoke. His aura was incomparably powerful and unfathomable. Crystal Jade Empire, you should know about it, right? Don't try to resist, it's useless. If you were a rank 5 martial ancestor realm cultivator, then there would be a glimmer of hope. Unfortunately, you're only a rank 8 martial emperor. You've only grasped the true essence of wind. It's nothing much, we'll just have to expend a bit more effort. In that case, you'll die very miserably. Ha, obediently hand over the sword and I, young master you, will guarantee your safety. What do you think? Crystal Jade Empire, the 15th ranked empire among the several hundred dynasties. Sure enough, it's a place where the strong prey on the weak. What a big empire, what high cultivations. Unfortunately, they're all shameless scoundrels who kill and rob. If you have the ability, then come and take it. Information about the Crystal Jade Empire immediately appeared in Chen Hao's mind. He was still as swift as the wind, but a wisp of coldness and awe-inspiring coldness appeared on his handsome face. He spoke with disdain and disdain. Yu Wuqing, rank 7 martial ancestor realm, the number 1 genius of the Crystal Jade Empire. People called him Young Master Yu. This year's 100 Empire ranking, he was a peak expert who had hopes of entering the top 10. He was ranked high up on the Black Pagoda Monument, 17th. As for the other 4 people, 2 were rank 6 martial ancestor realm and 2 were rank 5 martial ancestor realm. This was the information Chen Hao obtained after learning of their identities. Whoosh! Just as Chen Hao's words left his mouth, a gale suddenly rose within a circumference of 100 meters. His drifting figure immediately truly merged with the wind. At the same time, surging smoke began to fill the air. It was the aura of the 5 elemental energy, darkness and mist. Not only that, Chen Hao also displayed his mental state of merging with the myriad of things in the world, multitasking. Chen Hao did not have any confidence in facing experts who were above his level, and there were as many as 5 of them. However, there was no way out. Not to mention that Chen Hao would not hand over the treasured sword. Even if he did, the other party would definitely not give him any way out. This kind of bullshit might be able to fool a child, but it was impossible to fool Chen Hao. The only thing Chen Hao could do was to break out of the encirclement and contend with the other party. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Kill him. Yu Wuqing originally thought that since Chen Hao had spoken, he must be afraid. However, he did not expect that Chen Hao, a mere martial emperor, would actually not give in. The reason why he did not attack forcefully was because he saw that Chen Hao had comprehended the true essence of the wind attribute. Then, he thought of the incomparably sharp supreme-grade spiritual sword in Chen Hao's hand. If he wanted to kill Chen Hao, it would probably be very troublesome. It was even possible that the other 4 people would be injured. However, at this moment, he could no longer have any misgivings. As Yu Wuqing spoke, the 5 people attacked at the same time. Taking a step forward, tyrannical origin energy fluctuations suddenly surged out. The 5 of them brandished their swords at the same time. Countless incomparably sharp sword lights actually joined together from 5 directions like an inescapable net, condensing into a combined sword formation to attack. Clearly, the 5 of them had already undergone training before coming to participate in the ranking of 100 dynasties. The moment they attacked, it was an unavoidable killing move. Chen Hao, who had merged into the wind, narrowed his eyes abruptly. Even he did not expect that the 5 of them could actually form a sword formation to attack. Originally, Chen Hao thought that although he could not defeat the encirclement of the 5 experts, with the true essence of the wind attribute and the ability to merge with everything in the world, finding an opening to break out of the encirclement would not be a problem. It might even be possible to kill one of the weaker opponents. However, at this moment, the dense sword lights that came from all directions were simply unavoidable. So what if he had the wind attribute and was faintly discernible? The other party's attack was omnidirectional. There were no gaps. A trace of determination flashed in the depths of Chen Hao's eyes. Instantly, a resplendent rainbow light shone from between his brows. At the same time, the few remaining 5 elemental spiritual pills and more than half of the more precious 5 elemental spiritual crystals burned fiercely in the Xianhuang ring. It was painful, but there was no other choice. Swoosh! 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 5 spiritual swords of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth instantly escaped from the Xianhuang ring at a terrifying speed. In an instant, the majestic and terrifying 5 elemental energy condensed around Chen Hao to form a light screen formed by the 5 swords. Boom! 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 A terrifying explosion sounded. The 5 elemental light screen forcibly blocked all the sword lights that were flying towards them. At the same time, a fierce light flashed in Chen Hao's eyes. With a bang, under the protection of the 5 elemental light screen, he swept towards a 5th-grade martial grandmaster as fast as lightning. His attack was swift and fierce. Accompanied by the swift and fierce sword light, the 5th-grade martial grandmaster instantly panicked. He had personally seen how terrifying Chen Hao's sword was. If Chen Hao got close to him, he was afraid that he would end up like Zhou Xiao. Even if the other 4 could take advantage of this gap to kill Chen Hao, so what? At that time, he was afraid that he would be deader than dead. Therefore, the 5th-grade martial grandmaster was only stunned for a moment before he desperately tried to dodge to the side. Whoosh! The 7-colored light disappeared, the wind whistled, and smoke filled the air. The moment Chen Hao rushed out of the encirclement of the 5 people, he disappeared completely. Immediately after, a cool breeze blew. Even though the 5 people's cultivation was much higher than Chen Hao's, they were unable to lock onto Chen Hao's aura. Fuck, brat, just you wait. Boom. 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 The 5 people's violent energy blasted everywhere. Yu Wuqing's angry voice was filled with shock as he shouted loudly. No one would have thought that Chen Hao's sword was not a sword, but a set of 5 elemental combination spiritual weapons. The terrifying 5 elemental strength that was displayed in that instant was something that even Yu Wuqing's full power attack might not be able to break through. Not to mention, the 5 people had unleashed a wide-range attack in order to prevent Chen Hao from escaping. Bang! The furious Yu Wuqing smashed his fist through the air. The small mountain 100 feet away instantly exploded with a rumble. His expression was cold as he stared at the 5th-grade martial grandmaster who had dodged Chen Hao's attack. He angrily scolded, "Bastard, why are you dodging? Senior brother Yu, if I don't dodge, I'll definitely die, definitely die. Do you believe that I won't kill you right now?" Yu Wuqing said coldly as he grabbed the 5th-grade martial grandmaster's neck. After strangling him for half a minute, when blood flowed from the corner of the 5th-grade martial grandmaster's mouth, he threw him away as if he was throwing away a dead dog. "Next time, if anyone dodges again, I will personally behead that person." Ah! Pooh! Without any warning, before Yu Wuqing could finish his sentence, he suddenly screamed with a terrified expression. At the same time, his body flashed as he violently activated the energy in his body. In that instant, he felt as if he was on the verge of death and his hair stood on end, causing him to explode with all his strength. However, even so, an arrow of blood still shot out from the side of his neck. He was unable to completely dodge the silent attack. Boom! 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 Yu Wuqing seemed to have gone mad as he frantically activated 5 layers of earth energy. At the same time, sword light flashed continuously as he attacked in all directions. This sudden change caused the other 4 people to widen their eyes in horror. They felt as if they were being targeted as prey, causing them to instantly make the best choice. Like Yu Wuqing, they activated several layers of protective earth energy. 7th grade martial grandmaster, you're good. Watch your dog heads carefully. I'll come and take them at any time, ha ha ha. Only his voice could be heard, but he was nowhere to be seen. Chen Hao's cold and arrogant voice and loud laughter gradually drifted into the distance. Including Yu Wuqing, the faces of the 5 people were terrifyingly gloomy, and there was a strong sense of fear on their faces. Monthly votes. Requesting monthly votes. Recommendation votes. Urgently needed. Thank you very much. Also, thank you, Brother Tariff, for the 10,000 coins reward yesterday. Thank you. Chapter 162. Third update. Dark Mountain will continue with the 4th update. I guarantee it will be completed before midnight. Brothers and sisters, if you have any monthly votes or recommendation votes, please vote for Dark Mountain. Thank you. No one had expected that Chen Hao, who had escaped, would not have left. Instead, he chose to make a move at this time. What made them even more terrified was that they did not notice it at all. One could imagine what would have happened if Chen Hao had not killed Yu Wuqing, who had a high cultivation base. Instead, he had killed the other 4. Looking at Yu Wuqing's neck that had a thick layer of flesh peeled off, the other 4's legs began to tremble. Even Yu Wuqing was holding his neck. His face was pale and terrifyingly gloomy. No one said anything. Hoo, boom. 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 Right at this moment, another breeze blew. The 5, without exception, immediately began to frantically wave their swords in all directions. Only after half a minute did they stop. They were like birds startled by the twang of a bow. Senior brother Yu, what should we do? One of them asked with a trembling voice. I am being watched by such a monster. Sooner or later, we will. What are you afraid of? Yu Wuqing said without confidence. His brows were tightly knitted. It was obvious that he was pondering. However, he did not remove the protective aura around him. He did not dare to guarantee that Chen Hao would not return a second time. Earlier, if he had not experienced countless life and death situations and sharpened his intuition toward danger, he would likely have died on the spot. If he had a choice, Yu Wuqing believed that he would not have provoked such a monster from the very beginning. He was only a rank 8 martial emperor. However, he possessed a top-quality 5 elements spiritual treasure. If that was all, he would definitely be a fat sheep. However, the most important thing was that he had comprehended the essence of the wind attribute. It was simply impossible to guard against. This brat is definitely Leng Yihan of the Sky Tyrant Empire. After a moment of silence, Yu Wuqing's eyes suddenly shone with a sinister light. He said, we should be careful for now. It is indeed very dangerous to be entangled by the soul of a coward like him. However, it is impossible for him to relax. When a huge batch of cultivators swarm in, I'll just have to spread the news that he killed Zhou Xiao and used a top-notch 5 elements fusion artifact. I believe that there will be some experts in the top 20 who would be tempted by the news. Humans die for wealth just as birds die for food. Let's kill with a borrowed knife. It would be perfect if we could be the Oreo behind. Good idea. Senior brother Yu is indeed formidable. Several hundred miles away, at the entrance of a hidden cave, a cool breeze blew past, and Chen Hao's figure mysteriously appeared in the cave. Chen Hao's white gown was now stained with blood from his heart to his shoulders. His face was pale. After entering the cave, he quickly sat down cross-legged and let out a long breath. He took out 2 resurrection fruits and swallowed them into his dantian. A 7th grade martial grandmaster is indeed formidable. They could not sense my aura, but they were able to react the moment I attacked. Fortunately, my physical body is extraordinary. Otherwise, I would have gone for wool and come home shorn. However, I think they will not dare to cause trouble for me for the time being. They are still on tenterhooks. Damn it, I wasted a batch of pills. I will get my revenge sooner or later. Chen Hao's handsome face flashed with a hint of coldness as he spoke. Chen Hao had burned all his 5 elements spiritual pills and more than half of the more precious 5 elements spiritual crystals to block the attack of the 5 people's sword formation. It would be strange if he did not feel heartache. This was especially true for the 5 elements spiritual crystals. After entering the martial saint level, one could directly extract energy from them. They were even more precious than Zhou Xiao's primal crystal stones. How could Chen Hao not feel heartache when he had spent so much? It was also because of this that Chen Hao did not leave after breaking out of the encirclement. Instead, he waited for an opportunity to kill them and recoup his losses. However, he did not expect that not only would he fail to kill Yu Wuqing, he would also almost lose his life. Fortunately, his physical body contained the undying bloodline that Xia Yuyu had mentioned. Thus, he did not appear on the spot and mysteriously left the scene. Otherwise, he might really have been chopped into minced meat. This also made Chen Hao realize that a rank 7 martial ancestor was not someone he could contend against for the time being. After taking a deep breath, Chen Hao immersed his mind into cultivation. The heavy injury on his chest immediately healed at an even faster speed under the circulation of his energy. The pure and dense spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the ruins made Chen Hao deeply feel how astonishing the effects of cultivation were. Hiss hiss hiss. The boundless spiritual qi of heaven and earth immediately surged towards Chen Hao after he had finished healing his injuries and his mind was immersed in the cultivation method of the longevity arts. A trace of a strange fluctuation suddenly entered Chen Hao's mind, causing Chen Hao to open his eyes in astonishment. The aura of the ruins. You sensed it? The treasure-hunting sword spirit immediately asked with a trace of astonishment. Yes. Let's go. Whoosh. Chen Hao did not care about the 2 resurrection fruits in his dantian that had not been completely refined and absorbed. He directly turned into a ray of light and quickly flew in the direction of the ruins. Although he already knew that the ruins here were not the real ancient ruins, it did not affect Chen Hao's interest at all. Since this was a place that the sect had specially condensed for them to increase their cultivation, it naturally had great benefits. At least for Chen Hao, who had not even stepped into the Xiantian realm, it was definitely very useful. More than 10 minutes later, Chen Hao appeared on a mountain peak that did not have the slightest abnormality. The fluctuation of the aura of the ruins became even stronger, and Chen Hao could feel it even more clearly. However, the treasure-hunting sword spirit still did not feel anything. However, there were many cultivators that entered the ruins intermittently, and many people rushed over as fast as lightning. Obviously, they also had the opportunity and luck to be able to sense the aura of the ruins. However, before those people arrived, the aura of the ruins suddenly became stronger for a while and then strangely disappeared. They could not sense it in the slightest. Fuck. Many people cursed out loud. They could only give up. They knew that in this situation, someone had beaten them to it. No wonder Leng Yihan of the Sky Tyrant Empire was so powerful. He was only a rank 8 martial emperor, but he was able to easily kill Zhou Xiao, a rank 5 martial ancestor from the Xiantian Empire. A top-quality 5 elements combination spiritual artifact. 5 top-quality 5 elements attributed treasured swords and a ring with all 5 elements. It's simply too powerful. If I can obtain it, I will definitely have a place in the top 10 of the 100 empires. Stop dreaming. If he can easily kill a rank 5 martial ancestor, wouldn't he be able to easily kill you? How about working together? The 2 of us can work together and split the treasures after obtaining them. After all, that guy is training alone. That's a good idea. The 2 figures flew in the sky. It was clearly a secret, but the 2 seemed to be too excited and forgot to send voice transmissions. This caused cultivators with sharp senses to hear it. Did you hear? Leng Yihan has a top-quality 5 elements combination spiritual artifact. Ordinary spiritual artifacts and treasured swords were directly sliced into pieces like tofu. As a large number of cultivators poured in, the news began to spread among some of the cultivators. When some of the lone cultivators heard the news, they immediately began to look for their companions from the same empire. After finding them, they excitedly told them the news. When some experts with powerful cultivations heard the news, their expressions flickered with excitement. This was especially true for some experts from empires with strength comparable to the Sky Tyrant Empire. They were even more excited. They knew very well what Leng Yihan was like. Not to mention having a top-quality spiritual artifact, even if he didn't have one, when they encountered him, they would still kill him without hesitation. However, after knowing that Leng Yihan had a top-quality spiritual artifact and was cultivating alone, they became even more attentive. A ring with 5 elements. 5 elements attributed treasured swords. Not long after, Yang Fan, Ni Jianping, Li Yifeng, and Tan Tai Lian, who had also entered the ruins area, quickly heard the news from the 2 experts who were flying at high speed. The 4 of them were a little surprised and immediately thought of Chen Hao. Because it was no secret that Chen Hao had the yellow ring and the 5 elements gold swords. But they immediately denied that it was Chen Hao. Because the other party said that it was a top-quality combination spiritual artifact. Chen Hao's spiritual artifact was far from top quality. I have a top-quality combination spiritual artifact. I killed Zhou Xiao from the Empire of Magnificent Wind. A young man who had already entered the area of the ruins was quickly plundering the elixirs while sensing the aura of the ruins. After encountering some cultivators, he immediately caught the whispers of those cultivators and heard them. The teenager's face revealed a devilish expression, and then the thin and arrogant corners of his mouth curled up slightly with a trace of coldness and disdain. Someone wants to target me. Very well. I'd like to see how many people are courting death. It saves me the trouble of finding them. I've only killed a dozen people, too few. This teenager was Leng Yihan from the Empire of Badian. His figure was tall and straight like a sword. Even though he had restrained all his aura, there was a faint surge of sword essence. He was handsome with a jade-like face. His thin lips curled up slightly, naturally revealing a kind of cold arrogance, ruthlessness, and disdain. His whole body emitted a faint evil aura. What was more terrifying was that when he looked around, his eyes would inadvertently emit a strong murderous aura, like 2 incomparably sharp swords, cold and frightening. Not to mention the martial emperor realm, even experts below grade 6 martial grandmaster would faintly feel a chill after sensing his aura. Just like his name. Leng Yihan. What is this? The moment Chen Hao entered the ruins, he suddenly said in surprise. The ruins was only 1,000 feet in size, and one could see the edge at a glance. Calling it a ruins was indeed a bit exaggerated. And just as the treasure-hunting sword spirit said, there was no ancient aura at all. It was obviously a space condensed by a sect expert. However, at this moment, Chen Hao looked at the lake water that filled the entire space and said with a shocked expression, "That's right." The lake water was clear, and indeed, it was like a quiet little lake. But in Chen Hao's sharp senses, he could clearly feel that it was not water, but extremely pure energy. It was like pure energy after liquefaction. Continue to write the 4th update, looking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Please. Chapter 163. Elemental Energy Lake. The treasure-hunting sword spirit spoke in Chen Hao's mind with faint excitement. You mean, this lake water is liquefied by elemental energy? You can say that, but it's not entirely liquefied elemental energy. If there's so much of it, wouldn't it be great? It's just that a lot of it has fused in. Don't waste time, there are only 15 days. Quickly enter the lake and cultivate. There are many benefits. Absorbing and tempering the energy is secondary. The main thing is to comprehend the process of condensing from a gaseous state into a liquid state. If you can comprehend it, I believe your cultivation speed will increase by a few times. Ha! This time, I can finally have a good meal as well. At the same time that the treasure-hunting sword spirit spoke, numerous tentacles had already impatiently escaped from between Chen Hao's brows and extended towards the origin energy lake. 15 days later, the entire area of the ruins would collapse, and it would be the time to move on to the next area of the ruins. The treasure-hunting sword spirit had already found out about this from Qin Hao. After the treasure-hunting sword spirit awakened, besides devouring the higher grade 5 element spirit pills and spirit crystals, he didn't ask Qin Hao to give him any medicinal pills to devour. He was clearly aware that this kind of low-grade energy wasn't very useful to him. Moreover, Qin Hao's selfless spirit caused his medicinal pills to always be at a moderate level. How could the treasure-hunting sword spirit have the nerve to ask for them? If it affected Qin Hao's cultivation, then the losses would outweigh the gains. Only when Qin Hao quickly advanced to a higher level and was able to absorb higher grade energy would he be able to recover in the fastest time. However, with such a vast amount of energy now, Qin Hao wouldn't be able to absorb it completely even if he took a year or so. Wouldn't it be a pity to waste it? Rumble. Splash. The torn clothes on Qin Hao's body instantly exploded, and he jumped naked into the Essence Energy Lake, causing a huge splash as he directly sank into the Essence Energy Lake. What pure and condensed energy! At the instant he jumped into the lake, Qin Hao instantly clearly felt the extremely pure and condensed energy within the lake water. This was the first time Qin Hao had encountered such powerful energy. After a short moment of shock, Qin Hao sat up cross-legged in the water, and his mind became clear as he immersed himself in cultivation and comprehension. Hiss hiss hiss. All the pores on Qin Hao's body opened up, and his meridians, which were several times wider than a normal person's, instantly began to madly absorb the pure and condensed liquid yuan power from the lake water. In a short span of 10 minutes, he had reached the limit of yuan power that his body could withstand. What shocked Qin Hao even more was that after this liquid energy entered his body, it strangely began to stagnate, causing him to be unable to absorb even the slightest bit of it. Moreover, his dantian felt an intense pain as if it was about to explode. Liquid essence energy vaporized. Because of my current realm and the fact that I have yet to comprehend how to liquefy essence energy, my dantian is unable to store liquid essence energy. This is just like how elixirs must be refined and absorbed. The attribute of the energy has not changed, only the form of the energy has changed. Just like the 3 forms of water, this is reversible. Qin Hao ignored the pain in his dantian and stopped devouring energy. Instead, he focused on tempering his dantian. His mind was immersed in the tempering process as he felt the subtle transformation of liquid energy into a gaseous state. This transformation process was not like the change in temperature from water vapor to ice, nor was it purely based on brute force compression. Instead, it was a type of mysterious Tao. When a practitioner's state of mind had yet to comprehend this type of Tao, it was impossible for them to transform the gaseous yuan power in their dantian into a liquid state no matter what. Compression could only make the gaseous yuan power more condensed. However, it would never be able to liquefy it. Time passed by minute, while Qin Hao's mind was immersed in comprehending the transformation of yuan power. The treasure-hunting sword's tentacles extended far away, devouring the vast and boundless yuan power in the lake. It did not devour near Qin Hao, but stayed far away, fearing that it would affect Qin Hao's absorption. 1 day, 2 days, time quietly passed as Qin Hao continued to comprehend. Qin Hao repeatedly devoured some of the liquid energy. After the liquid energy was completely vaporized, he would devour it again. He was repeating this process non-stop. On the 3rd day, Qin Hao, who had already reached peak rank 8 Martial Emperor, was simply unable to break through the bottleneck at all. In fact, he did not even cause much of a disturbance as he successfully broke through to rank 9 Martial Emperor. That sort of sensation was like an extremely thin membrane that was being gently touched by surging origin energy time and time again. Just like that, Qin Hao quietly broke through it. Qin Hao was not pleasantly surprised in the slightest. In fact, he did not even care about it. His mind was still completely focused on comprehending the profoundness of the transformation of yuan power. The only thing he felt was that the amount of liquid energy he devoured every single time was increasing. The amount of time it took for the yuan power to transform into a gaseous state in his dantian became longer and longer. Furthermore, Qin Hao would have to endure the extreme pain of his dantian exploding and his body exploding every single time. He would have to forcibly devour a bit more of Yuan power and continuously challenge his limits. This sort of crazy state stunned even the treasure-hunting sword spirit. It truly did not understand why Qin Hao's spirit of self-torture was so powerful. However, it must be admitted that Qin Hao's crazy cultivation method was most definitely astonishing. This was especially true for Qin Hao, who did not possess a powerful spirit power cultivation method. For martial cultivation, Qin Hao possessed the valiant longevity secret art. For intent, he still did not possess a truly powerful cultivation method. Fortunately, his two barriers were now one. Furthermore, they complemented each other and allowed him to increase his strength at the same time. However, it was undeniable that Qin Hao's cultivation method and intent was an important factor that restricted his increase in strength. However, the pain Qin Hao was currently enduring that ordinary people would not be able to endure was undoubtedly endlessly beneficial to his tempering of his spirit power. On the 10th day of Qin Hao's training, the thousands of cultivators in the historical remains had already turned the entire historical remains upside down. Many people had obtained the qualifications to enter the historical remains. Compared to Qin Hao, the historical remains that some people had entered were more powerful, and the benefits that they had obtained were similarly more astonishing. However, the majority of the disciples who had entered the historical remains, compared to the elemental energy lake that Qin Hao was in, was much more inferior. These things could only be encountered by chance. Even if they were not ancient historical remains, they were still condensed by experts. Similarly, there were also opportunities and luck that could only be encountered by chance. Even more people did not even have the opportunity to enter the historical remains. They could only constantly plunder spiritual herbs and cultivate within a limited time. Fights and conflicts would occur from time to time. 15th day. It was also the last day that the cultivators would stay in the historical remains. The moment the energy barrier collapsed, it was the moment that everyone would once again enter the endless sea. Everyone was clear about this point. From the moment the training began, the entire training process had been completely fixed. The departure time for every section and every level was completely the same. Splash! With a splash of water, the naked Qin Hao soared into the sky and flew out from the elemental energy lake. His sparkling and translucent skin did not have the slightest flaw. Just by looking at the degree of the skin, it was afraid that it was not inferior to a woman with better skin. Fortunately, Qin Hao's streamlined, plump, and solid muscles were filled with the unique masculine aura of a man. A certain part of his body was also valiant and formidable. He had become a real man. Otherwise, his skin that was more perfect than a woman's would be a little too painful. Phew! The moment he rushed out of the elemental energy lake, he deeply exhaled. His eyes shone with a touch of breathtaking light, faintly with a trace of excitement. Have you comprehended? It happened 3 days ago. The corner of Qin Hao's mouth slightly curled up. He proudly said in his mind, haven't you noticed that the energy in my dantian has already changed? Although it's only a trace, it's only a matter of time. It won't be long before I liquefy the gaseous energy. However. What? My mental energy and elemental energy seem to be unable to be completely separated. With just a thought, the upper dantian's Naiwan Palace and the lower dantian's Sea of Qi will become one and fuse on their own without my control. Therefore, if I want to liquefy it, I'm afraid it'll be the same as my barrier. I'll have to fuse both of them together. It'll be many times more difficult. Qin Hao said. Your situation is indeed unprecedented, but I don't think it's a bad thing. The only drawback is that it'll make it many times more difficult for you to increase your cultivation base. Furthermore, it may become more difficult as you progress. However, your true strength completely surpasses your cultivation base. You can say that there are gains and losses. Phew. Alright, I'll rest for now. I'm clearly full from eating such low-grade energy, but I still feel hungry. It's not nutritious at all. After the treasure-hunting sword's spirit finished speaking, it disappeared from Qin Hao's mind. Qin Hao took out his clothes from his storage ring and put them on. After putting on his clothes, Chen Hao looked at the elemental energy lake. The energy in the lake had basically dried up after being devoured by him and the treasure-hunting sword spirit. Of course, the main reason was that the treasure-hunting sword spirit had devoured too much. That fellow seemed to be a bottomless pit that would never be filled. Hiss. Hiss. Not long after, a strange energy fluctuation erupted from the ruins and wrapped around Chen Hao's body. In the next instant, Chen Hao appeared on a mountain peak outside the ruins. Swoosh! The moment Chen Hao appeared, 6 figures flew over Chen Hao in the sky and rapidly flew toward the ruins. When the 6 figures saw Chen Hao suddenly appear, their expressions became very interesting. Similarly, Chen Hao's expression became very interesting as well. Soon after, a cold light flashed in Chen Hao's eyes, and his figure strangely transformed into a gust of wind. Why is she with them? Chen Hao, who had concealed himself, frowned slightly. Let's go. The leader of the 6 suddenly shouted. With a whoosh, like a mouse seeing a cat, he instantly increased his speed to the extreme. He was extremely frightened and flew out as fast as lightning. Similarly, the other 4 were so scared that they almost peed their pants. How could they dare to hesitate? They directly used all their strength and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Only the 6th person, who was still in a daze after seeing Chen Hao, did not understand what was going on. These 6 people were not strangers. 5 of them were Yu Wuqing's group, and the other person was Tan Tai Lian. It would be strange if Chen Hao was not surprised. But what was more surprising was that these guys were so afraid of him. As for Tan Tai Lian, she was still in a daze when she suddenly saw Chen Hao. However, before she could regain her senses, those 5 incomparably powerful experts had disappeared without a trace. What was going on? Could it be that the murderous Leng Yihan had come? In the past few days, these 5 people only left the area in a panic when they heard the news of Leng Yihan's appearance and who he had killed. But now, they clearly did not. Chen Hao. You're there, aren't you? Tan Tai Lian hesitated for a moment before shouting into the void. Looking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Thank you. Chapter 165. The gap between them, which was less than a palm's length, was widened once again. Today, it will still explode. Fight! Brothers and sisters with monthly votes, help Dark Mountain charge forward. Only 11 votes left. Can you fulfill Dark Mountain's wish? The wind blew gently. There were no ripples of energy in the air, nor was there any trace of Chen Hao's presence. However, as soon as Tan Tai Lian finished speaking, Chen Hao's figure appeared in front of her in a strange manner. Chen Hao's handsome face had a hint of coldness as he stared at Tan Tai Lian and asked, "Where are the 3 of them?" His black and deep eyes were as sharp as swords. Tan Tai Lian sensed an oppressive aura that almost suffocated her for no reason. Her expression changed slightly as she said, "Yang Fan and Ni Jianpain are also training by themselves. My cultivation base is too weak, so I was originally with Li Yifeng. Then, he entered the ruins, and I was alone." Hearing Tan Tai Lian's words, the coldness on Chen Hao's face slowly faded as he asked, "Then why are you with those 5 people?" "It's a coincidence. My cultivation is too weak, so I can only find." "Chen Hao, can I follow you?" Tan Tai Lian's identity as a person of interest allowed her to clearly feel that Chen Hao's presence was much stronger than before he started training. She had found 5 powerful people to rely on, but now they had mysteriously slipped away. Thus, she could only change her target to Chen Hao. Also, she faintly felt that the 5 people's quick escape had something to do with Chen Hao. After all, other than Chen Hao, there was no one else's presence here. Also, the 5 people only acted strangely when they saw Chen Hao. And now, Chen Hao's tone when he asked about the 5 people meant that they had met before. Although the quick-witted Tan Tai Lian did not understand why the 5 people were so afraid of Chen Hao, she knew that the current Chen Hao had probably exceeded her imagination. "Sorry. Forgive me for being blunt, but you shouldn't have come here with such an attitude." Those 5 fellows are all about to die. Don't get involved with them. By the way, let me remind you that climbing up the social ladder and seeking a backer will only make you weaker. Also, if you continue to use your looks as an asset, you will suffer one day. Goodbye. Not only did Chen Hao not have any pity for Tan Tai Lian's pitiful appearance, but his words were sharp and pointed at Tan Tai Lian's heart. As soon as he finished speaking, he didn't give Tan Tai Lian the chance to speak and transformed into a strand of cool wind that vanished in the heavens and the earth, leaving behind Tan Tai Lian, who was tongue-tied and whose face was flushed red and pale with shock. Someone who was about to die. At this moment, Tan Tai Lian wouldn't be Tan Tai Lian if she still didn't understand that Chen Hao had a conflict with those 5 people. It was precisely because she understood that she was even more shocked. Why were the cultivations of those 5 people so high? 1 rank 7 martial great master, 2 rank 6 martial great masters, and 2 rank 5 martial great masters. However, when they saw Chen Hao, they were like mice seeing a cat. Furthermore, Chen Hao, who was only a martial emperor, said that they were people who were about to die. Chen Hao's body was as fast as lightning. However, he didn't make any sound. Under the aura of the true essence of wind, he had completely merged with the air. Wherever he passed, there would only be a cool breeze blowing. Apart from that, there were no other abnormalities. When he quietly flew past some cultivators, he didn't attract any attention. Senior brother, do you think that Leng Yihan has already arrived in this region? It's very possible, otherwise, why would you Wuqing and the others be so scared? Oh. That Leng Yihan is truly terrifying. He's only a rank 8 martial emperor, yet he was unscathed after being chased by so many experts. Furthermore, he killed 3 rank 7 martial emperors and dozens of rank 5 and rank 6 martial emperors. The Sky Tyrant Empire is truly worthy of being the #1 empire. I truly don't know how terrifying the other 2 ranked higher than Leng Yihan are. They are indeed abnormal. Yu Wuqing and the others really overestimated themselves. Since Leng Yihan has already found out that they were the ones who spread the news of him possessing the supreme grade combination of the 5 elements spiritual weapons, they definitely won't have it easy. I wonder if they can last until the end of the training. Who cares about them? After all, it has nothing to do with us. Although Leng Yihan is powerful, he doesn't kill the innocent. They were all killed because they coveted his treasures. That's enough. Let's not talk too much. Leng Yihan appears and disappears like a ghost. If he hears us. As Chen Hao rushed to the edge of the remnant region, he was surprised to see that many groups of cultivators were actually discussing the name Leng Yihan. This name left a deep impression on Chen Hao. Rank 8 Martial Emperor. In the powerful Sky Tyrant Empire, he was ranked 3rd, 4th and 5th. They were all rank 6 martial ancestors. When Chen Hao saw the information that Mu Qing gathered, he was very surprised. When he saw Leng Yihan's name on the Black Pagoda monument again, Chen Hao was also surprised. High and mighty, ranked 12th. Furthermore, Chen Hao was certain that this person possessed incomparably powerful battle talent. 12th was likely not his true rank. Just like Chen Hao himself, ranked 673rd. How was that possible? The Pagoda Monument's test was only a preliminary test. To most people, it should be more objective. However, to abnormal existences like Chen Hao and Leng Yihan, it was impossible to use the test to estimate their true battle strength. As more and more information was gathered, Chen Hao's lips curled up slightly, revealing a devilish smile. No wonder Yu Wuqing and the others were so afraid when they saw me. Interesting. That Yu Wuqing clearly wanted to use someone else to do his dirty work. Unfortunately, they guessed my identity wrong and made Leng Yihan take the blame. What's interesting is that Leng Yihan actually didn't explain and killed them. If it were me, I'm afraid I wouldn't explain either, right? It seems that Leng Yihan is also guessing who I am. It doesn't seem that hard to guess. The information that Mu Qing gathered appeared in Chen Hao's mind. There were many rank 8 martial emperors, but not many had the ability to defeat martial ancestors. and he happened to be one of them. He was the first person in Xuanwu Empire to obtain the qualifications to enter the 100 Empire ranking. Rumble. An hour later, the ceiling barrier that enveloped the entire historical remains finally reached its limit and directly exploded. Crash! Surging seawater immediately squeezed in and filled the barrier in an instant. The cultivators who had been waiting at the edge of the barrier activated their protective auras and charged into the sea, beginning their second charge. Tan Taiyuan's forehead shone with light as she tightly pursed her lips. She, who was alone, seemed to have been awakened by Qin Hao's merciless words. Her clear eyes emitted a sense of determination as she charged into the sea. She had her pride and bottom line. But because she had unexpectedly obtained the qualifications to enter the 100 Empire ranking, especially after seeing that she was the last on the Black Pagoda Monument, she had always felt that her strength was too weak and that she shouldn't even have the qualifications to enter the 100 Empire ranking. It was this mentality that had blinded her heart and caused her to lose the heart of an expert. Instead, she wanted to walk the crooked path and rely on her own advantages to find a strong backer and smoothly pass the difficult and dangerous trials. But Qin Hao's cold and merciless words had awakened her. Was a rank 9 in 10 emperor really that weak? Much of the information that Mu Qing provided was about rank 9 and rank 8 martial emperors. She had only been tested a bit early. There were still countless lower-ranked empires that hadn't been tested. It was impossible for her to be the last. She wasn't weak. Qin Hao, 43rd. When Qin Hao and all the other disciples began their second charge, a huge black pagoda monument strangely appeared in the air above the endless sea. It shone with a bright golden light. On the pagoda monument, golden names were moving up and down. Over 100 experts from various sects were staring at the pagoda monument with bright eyes. When the golden light disappeared and the names were fixed, Dong Fangting and Xian Xian's gazes quickly scanned the names from top to bottom. When they saw Qin Hao's name, the two of them revealed extreme shock at almost the same time. 43rd. How could it be 43rd? Although the two of them already knew that Qin Hao's ranking would definitely soar, they didn't expect it to soar so high. In merely the first trial of the Endless Sea, Qin Hao's ranking had soared by over 1,500. That's right, it was over 1,500. The ranking that Qin Hao saw when he was first tested was not the final ranking. That was because there were still countless disciples from various empires that hadn't started their trials. Qin Hao's final ranking was 1,582nd. Among the close to 4,000 disciples, he was slightly above the middle. But now, his ranking had directly risen to 43rd, high above everyone else. At practically the same time, Dong Fangting and Xian Xian thought in their hearts, could it be? Qin Hao killed experts. The information of the disciples would be transmitted to the Black Pagoda Monument through the mysterious connection between the token and the Black Pagoda Monument. After every trial, the information would be re-evaluated. The ranking would be based on the disciples' ranking when they entered the remnant region, the battles they experienced, the number of monstrous beasts they killed, the level of monstrous beasts they killed, the battles between cultivators, and so on. That must be it. Otherwise, just by entering the remnant region in 10th place and killing monstrous beasts, he wouldn't be able to rise to such heights. Dong Fangting's eyes were filled with excitement. Even she hadn't expected Qin Hao to be so powerful. At this moment, she no longer harbored any thoughts of pulling Qin Hao into the star-picking sect. With Qin Hao's talent and combat strength, there should be a better place for him to go. But Xian Xian's brows were deeply furrowed, and she even felt very uncomfortable. As a direct descendant of the Xuanwu Empire's imperial family, she was the pride of the entire Xuanwu Empire. She was also the strongest sect among all the genius disciples of the Xuanwu Empire who had entered the cultivation world. She was an idol to anyone who spoke of her. She wanted to pull Qin Hao into the Flying Sword sect because she admired Qin Hao at the beginning. After Qin Hao entered the Flying Sword sect, with his talent, he would definitely have a very bright future and would be a great help to her in the future. But at this moment, Qin Hao's high-profile performance had already begun to slip out of her control, to the point that he didn't even take her words seriously. Not only was it difficult to rope him in, but Qinhao might also enter an even stronger sect. From then on, her position as the #1 sect would be replaced by Qinhao, Yang Fan, Ni Jianpain, and Li Yifeng's rankings have also risen by quite a bit. Only Tan Tailian's ranking has fallen. That's strange. A grade 9 intent emperor. Based on her age, there should be a lot of room for her to rise. Dong Fangting thought to herself after she found a few familiar names among the densely packed names. Friends who have finished reading the update, please check if you have a monthly vote and vote for Wushan. Wushan will continue to write with all his might. The 4th watch will definitely be completed. Please vote. Chapter 166. I'm so sad. Dark Mountain is fighting so hard, but not only are our monthly votes not close to the 3rd place, we're being left behind by the 3rd place, and the 5th place is catching up. We're full of passion and fighting with our lives on the line. Not only are there no cheers, flowers, or applause, but there's also a basin of cold water poured over our heads. It's so cold. Is this all we have? The promised 4th watch, Dark Mountain will erupt. Those who support Dark Mountain, please vote for Dark Mountain. I'll crawl away and write my story, hiss. Deep in the sea, demonic aura surged. A figure did not even activate his protective aura. Only his feet were spurting out vigorous origin power as he advanced forward at an astonishing speed. The water behind him was water. The spurting of origin power gave him a huge rebound force, pushing his body forward quickly. However, the water in front of him was like air, without any resistance. This figure was Qinhao. Qinhao did not hide his aura. Instead, he chose the most direct route to advance toward his target. He, who had just stepped into the 9th grade martial emperor level, could not wait to fight. Why would he hide his aura? However, what Qinhao did not expect was that his speed was too fast. He was so fast that when the nearby demonic beasts sensed his aura and rushed over, he was already far away. The demonic beasts underwater could not catch up to him. Occasionally, he would meet the lone demonic beasts head-on. He would summon 9 flying daggers and immerse his mind into the flying daggers. Using an extremely strange method, he would kill them violently as if he was cutting vegetables and watermelons. The aura of these demonic beasts were obviously 2 grades stronger than the first group. They had the strength of a 3rd grade martial grandmaster. A few of them could even reach the 4th or 5th grade. However, under Qinhao's flying daggers, they were no challenge at all. He advanced triumphantly. Unknowingly, he had easily crossed a distance of nearly 1,000 miles. Finally, he encountered another wave of demonic beasts. This time, when Qinhao arrived, he was the first to arrive within 100 miles. As for whether other people had arrived before him, Qinhao was not sure. However, without any hesitation, he excitedly charged into the wave of demonic beasts. Kill! Kill! The densely packed monstrous beasts, upon seeing the only cultivator who had intruded into their territory, immediately rushed over in a frenzy. These monstrous beasts were not as strong as the solitary monstrous beasts, but their numbers were too astonishing. Moreover, they were all fearless as they charged forward wave after wave. Kill! 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 Qinhao used both his hands and feet. His flying daggers flashed, and his mind was completely immersed in the massacre. Fist, palm, leg, all of these were used to vent his violent strength, and he fought to his heart's content. The flying daggers were the beginning of Qinhao's practice of merging with the world. Qinhao was clear that when he was able to instantly grasp the life trajectory and texture of a demonic beast's hard shell, it would be the moment when the flying daggers would tear it apart. Kill! 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 After venting his anger in these low-level demonic beasts, Chen Hao did not waste any more time and once again began to move forward quickly. As they went deeper into the ruins, the solitary demonic beasts became stronger and stronger. Under normal circumstances, when encountering these demonic beasts, cultivators would avoid them. When they arrived at the first ruin area, Chen Hao also avoided them. But this time, Chen Hao, who had realized his true strength, no longer dodged. Chen Hao did not dodge the demonic beasts with the battle prowess of a rank 6 martial great master, rank 7 martial great master, and even rank 8 martial great master. If they met, they would fight. If they fought, they would kill. It seemed like there was no challenge at all. A monstrous beast with the battle prowess of a rank 8 martial ancestor was, at best, similar to the rank 5 martial ancestor Zhou Xiao. But after a short period of half a month, they no longer posed any threat to Chen Hao. After 5,000 miles, a bright light curtain appeared in front of Chen Hao's eyes. He raised the token, and with a hiss, Chen Hao once again stepped into the second ruin area. Eighth, the instant Chen Hao stepped into the ruin area, in the sky above the endless sea, Chen Hao's name once again became the object of astonishment for the experts of the various sections. Furthermore, they were clearly much more astonished than the first time. The reason was very simple. At this moment, Chen Hao's ranking had risen to 43rd place. This attracted the attention of the majority of people. Last time, when he entered the ruin area in 10th place, the rankings were still unknown. Many people more or less thought that it was luck. However, after the rankings came out, no one thought that Chen Hao was lucky anymore. And now, he was entering the second ruin area in 8th place. This proved this point even more. Amazing! Leng Yihan, a rank 8 martial emperor, entered the ruin area in 4th place twice. Chen Hao was 10th once, and 8th this time. They are both rank 8 martial emperors. These two people are both very young. In a situation where their cultivations are far inferior, their performances are actually so astonishing, their futures are limitless. Indeed. It would appear that we have no hope. Geniuses like them will definitely be chosen by the high-level sections. This is especially true for that Leng Yihan. Right now, his ranking has risen to 5th place. I'm afraid that many of those experts whose names have disappeared were killed by him. That child, no one can compare to him. Chen Hao is also not simple. He must have also killed experts to rise to 43rd place. It's still too early to say that. After all, this is only the initial test. So what if he is first place? The only advantage of being in the top 10 is that he is a seeded participant. In the end, the rankings will still have to be determined on the stage. At that time, it is not impossible for him to die on the stage. Chen Hao raised his head and looked at the second underwater world. The astonishment in his eyes was no longer present. Although he was still astonished, it did not mean much to Chen Hao. Chen Hao knew that if other disciples came in, they would be very shocked and pleasantly surprised. This was because not only was the heaven and earth spirit qi in this space denser, it was also filled with a higher level of energy, the energy of the 5 elements. In this energy, Chen Hao caught a trace of the 5 elements' spiritual roots. It was not that there were 5 elements' spiritual roots here, but that the 5 elements' energy here contained a mysterious aura that could help cultivators comprehend. He could even sense the faint aura of the 5 elements' operation. Without a doubt, it would be easier for the disciples to comprehend the 5 elements' energy if they cultivated here. Chen Hao could not help but sigh. The sects in the world of cultivation were indeed not something that any empire could compare to. Just the experience of the 100 empire-ranking disciples was nothing in their eyes. However, they had specially opened up such a powerful space, and it seemed that the further one went, the more powerful it would be. One could imagine how powerful the experts of these sects were. Just this second level alone took 2 months. It seems that it really allows people to comprehend the 5 elements' energy. Unfortunately, it is not of much use to me. Chen Hao stared at this magical space and said in his mind, "Let's begin, okay." The treasure-hunting sword spirit said excitedly. This was a good thing for him. Although the 5 elements energy was not of a high level, it tasted much better than origin energy. Furthermore, the treasure-hunting sword spirit could sense that the aura of the spiritual herbs here were obviously spiritual herbs of the 5 elements. He was used to eating cornbread. Suddenly, there was a steamed bun. Although it was not fish or meat, it was still much better. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Chen Hao moved like lightning. At the beginning, when the treasure-hunting sword spirit felt that he was being watched, he still had some scruples and did some things to deceive others. However, when that feeling disappeared, he no longer had any scruples and began to harvest without restraint. Before the large group of cultivators could arrive, he had already plundered everything within a radius of a few hundred miles. There were all kinds of powerful 5 elements spiritual herbs, and there were more than 1,000 of them. Chen Hao did not stop after he was done with this area. He continued to plunder into the distance. As for whether the others could even drink the soup after they came in, he did not care. Strange. The treasure-hunting sword spirit suddenly spoke in Chen Hao's mind after he had plundered a full 100 miles to the left. What's wrong? There are still many spiritual herbs within a radius of a few dozen miles to the left. However, there is not a single spiritual herb's aura after that. Obviously, they have been plundered. It's still decreasing. Not even one. It's still decreasing. Chen Hao asked in surprise. That's why it's strange. You can do it because I'm here. How can this disciple be so sensitive to spiritual herbs? What a fast speed. They're all heading straight for the spiritual herbs. The treasure-hunting sword spirit said in shock. Although he was not sensitive to the aura of cultivators, he could clearly sense the location of the spiritual herbs. However, as he spoke, the 2 spiritual herbs closest to each other, which were more than 10 kilometers apart, had been plundered. It was obvious that the other party had gone straight for the spiritual herbs and did not spend any time searching for them. There's always someone better than you. Don't be surprised. Since there's someone like you, there must be someone stronger than you. Snatch. I don't care who he is. Chen Hao said in his mind. Let's snatch then. We'll snatch the good ones first. The treasure-hunting sword spirit said with a high fighting spirit. There had never been anything that could threaten his ability to sense spiritual herbs and treasures. How could he admit defeat? Faster, faster. Can you go faster? Chen Hao, your speed is not good. Obviously, you're not as fast as that guy. If you lose, it's your responsibility. I've already raised my speed to the limit. Hearing the treasure-hunting sword spirit's urging, Chen Hao was also shocked. At that moment, his speed had indeed been raised to the limit. However, he was still not as fast as his opponent. Chen Hao knew very well that although he was only a 9th-grade martial emperor, he had will and martial spirit dual bodies. Purely based on this characteristic, his speed was comparable to a 5th-grade martial grandmaster. Moreover, he had also comprehended the true essence of wind and was able to merge with the air. How fast was his opponent's speed? Or rather, how high was his opponent's cultivation level? Is someone trying to snatch it? A figure flickered in the air. Every time it flickered, it covered a distance of 10,000 feet. It was as if the space was being torn apart. Its speed was astonishingly fast. It was not something Chen Hao could compare with. Even when the figure appeared, the surrounding space was hazy and faintly discernible. The energy of heaven and earth within 100 feet would crazily gather towards it. It was impossible to see the appearance of the figure clearly. It was not even clear whether it was a man or a woman. One could only vaguely know that it was a person. Chapter 167. Third update. Dark Mountain continues to edit the 4th update. Brothers and sisters with monthly votes, please support Dark Mountain. Thank you. Suddenly, a strange ripple was emitted from the forehead of that figure. Everything within a circumference of 100 miles, not only the spiritual herbs, even the grass, the trees, the sand, and the stones were clearly displayed in his mind. Even Chen Hao's figure that had completely merged with the air and was rapidly flying did not escape that figure's perception. Wind attribute true essence, operating the 5 elements, and containing a trace of yin and yang, and an aura that has merged with all things in the world. After that figure captured Chen Hao's aura, he immediately opened his eyes wide in shock. Soon after, he sensed again. Rank 9 Martial Emperor, Boundless Essence. What a vigorous and masculine aura. Could it be him? That figure slightly frowned. His thin lips slightly curled up into a charming smile. At this moment, his incomparably sharp sword-like eyes shone. Immediately, the surrounding heaven and earth dimmed slightly. Within his eyes, it was as if stars had exploded. It was breathtaking. Whoosh! His figure suddenly swayed, and in the blink of an eye, he disappeared on the spot. The other party stopped. Chen Hao was slightly stunned. Soon after, he frowned and said, "Could it be that they discovered us and are rushing over? Hide your aura first. I can sense the situation of the spiritual herbs. However, a cultivator's aura needs to be within a certain range. With the other party's speed, they are definitely an expert." The treasure-hunting sword spirit said. "Amen." Chen Hao replied. He did not have the slightest bit of fear. He knew very well that the other party was definitely an expert. Furthermore, they possessed extremely valiant abilities. However, after comprehending the true essence of the wind attribute, Chen Hao was confident that he would have no problems protecting himself. After putting away the spiritual herbs beside him, Chen Hao directly turned into a gust of wind and merged with heaven and earth. However, he did not go far. He wanted to see exactly who it was that was even more valiant in sensing spiritual herbs than him, who possessed the treasure-hunting sword spirit. In Chen Hao's mind, if the other party were to come and find him, they would definitely be able to determine his location based on the location of the spiritual herbs, and not because they sensed him. Sure enough, they came. After a while, the voice of the treasure-hunting sword spirit sounded in Chen Hao's mind. Chen Hao immediately retracted his aura and locked his gaze in the direction the treasure-hunting sword spirit was sensing. At this moment, Chen Hao still did not sense anything. Hiss! After a while, a figure flashed in the void 1,000 feet away and disappeared again. Even with Chen Hao's abnormal eyesight, he was unable to capture the other party's appearance. So powerful. He must have comprehended the true essence of the space attribute, right? Chen Hao's eyes flashed with intense shock as he thought to himself. The other party's speed could not be described as flying at all. It was more like shuttling through the air. Compared to Yi Mingho, who had comprehended spatial energy, he was now many times stronger and faster. Therefore, in an instant, Chen Hao was certain that the other party had not simply comprehended spatial energy, but had comprehended its true essence. Just as Chen Hao was still immersed in that fleeting glimpse of the other party's silhouette, something that shocked Chen Hao even more happened. That figure appeared again. Chen Hao was able to see it clearly, but it appeared right in front of him. A pair of sharp sword-like eyes were flickering with a bright light as they stared straight at Chen Hao. No need to hide. The true essence of the wind attribute cannot escape my senses. The other party's lips curled up slightly as he stared straight at Chen Hao, who was hidden in the air, and spoke. "You're Leng Yihan." After sensing the other party's aura, Chen Hao no longer concealed himself and slowly revealed himself. He stared at the other party's soul-stirring eyes and spoke with a calm voice. "Chen Hao. How do you know me?" Chen Hao asked with a frown. "After being your scapegoat for so long, you still can't guess. Among rank 8 martial emperors of similar age, only you and I have the ability to challenge martial ancestor realm cultivators. You are the first person to be able to face me so calmly. It seems that you really do possess a top-quality 5 elements fusion spirit artifact. You want to snatch it?" Chen Hao's pupils constricted. His pitch-black eyes instantly flashed with a fierce aura, and a surge of battle intent instantly soared into the sky. Seeing Chen Hao's appearance, Leng Yihan frowned slightly. Then, he actually revealed a slight smile. Instead, he withdrew his aura and said, "The way of nature to merge with all things in the world, who taught you that? Don't be surprised and don't hide it, because I also know how to." Not allowing Chen Hao to speak, Leng Yihan's aura suddenly merged with the air. His figure was clearly in front of him, but in Chen Hao's perception, there was no difference between him and the surrounding air. Even more astonishing was that with a flash of his blade, an ore of unknown material rapidly changed shape in his hand. In an instant, it became Chen Hao's current appearance. It was extremely lifelike and lifelike. "Go, I've said what I need to say. Step into the cultivation world. If someone from the secular world learns of your carving skills, remember, say that you received the teachings of an old man by chance. As for where you met him and what he looks like, you can make up your own story. Remember, don't expose me. Also, don't become enemies with the person who asked you. Treat him as an elder. Go. I'm sleepy." Chen Hao's heart trembled. The words his father said before he left appeared in his mind. He originally felt that such a possibility was almost non-existent. But now, before he had even truly stepped into the cultivation world, it had already happened. Even stranger was that the person who asked him was actually a disciple of the 100 Empire ranking. Furthermore, he was only 1 or 2 years older than him. His talent and battle power were likely much higher than his. Shocking, there was nothing more shocking than this. At this instant, Chen Hao felt that his trump cards and advantages seemed to have disappeared in front of the youth before him. Taking a deep breath, Chen Hao stared at Leng Yihan and said, "By chance, I received the teachings of an old man. How did you learn it? Was it also that old man who taught you?" Chen Hao naturally could not treat him as an elder. Moreover, Chen Hao guessed that the nameless old man must have a deep relationship with his father. As for what kind of relationship, Chen Hao did not know. But one thing was certain, his father was hiding. And could this Leng Yihan in front of him be the disciple of the nameless old man in the secular world? It was very likely. The teachings of an old man? What does he look like? How old is he? Can you carve him for me to see? Hearing Chen Hao's words, Leng Yihan was actually a little excited. Involuntarily, to Chen Hao's surprise, there was a slight change in his voice. Although this change was very faint, Chen Hao could not help but think of the damned eunuch Yin Fenghan. "What does the one who taught you look like? Carve it for me to see. Perhaps it's a person." Chen Hao said. "My master is definitely not the one who taught you. Because I am her only disciple in the secular world. But I can show you." Leng Yihan said. As he spoke, he quickly drew his sword. In the blink of an eye, a figure appeared in front of Chen Hao's eyes. However, this figure was wearing a bamboo hat, a veil, and a loose robe. It was impossible to see the face or even the figure. The nameless old man. Chen Hao thought of the records about the nameless old man and was immediately even more certain of Leng Yihan's identity. "My master is the nameless old man. I only know of her appearance. It's your turn." Leng Yihan's sharp eyes had disappeared. At this moment, they were extremely clear. He stared at Chen Hao with bright eyes and said expectantly. Chen Hao's expression did not change. However, a thought flashed in his mind. Immediately, a saber light flashed as he quickly drew his saber. A small piece of purple crystal jade turned into a lifelike old man in an instant. The old man's appearance was similar to his father, Chen Hai, but he looked older. He stood with his hands behind his back, as if he had merged with the world. Chen Hao was making things up, but he did not make things up according to his father's wishes. That would have been too fake. He could not make it truly lifelike. But now, this figure was the appearance of his father's life that Chen Hao had captured decades later, with only a slight change. "Can you give this to me?" I'll give you this in exchange. It's more valuable than your purple crystal jade, and it's also very useful for you. Leng Yihan took out a fist-sized milky white crystal that exuded an extreme Yin aura and handed it to Chen Hao. Good stuff. Yuan Yin crystal. Chen Hao, take it. You need it, but I seem to need it more. Treasure hunting sword spirit said in Chen Hao's mind. Okay. Chen Hao took the Yuan Yin crystal and gave the statue to Leng Yihan. I have a few more questions. Please tell me. This is very important to my master. After Leng Yihan put away the statue, he stared at Chen Hao. There was no threat in his words. Instead, there was a hint of pleading. Ask away. But since you've asked, you have to answer a few questions of mine, Chen Hao said. Okay. Where did you meet the old man? What do you know about him? I met him in the Magic Cloud Mountain range of our Xuanwu Empire. I accidentally entered the depths of the Magic Cloud Mountain range and encountered a powerful monster. I almost lost my life, but the old man saved me and taught me this carving technique. After sending me out of the Magic Cloud Mountain range, the old man left. The old man didn't say anything else. He didn't even tell me his name. Chen Hao chose his words carefully, and his expression carried a trace of regret as he spoke. Was he alone or with two people? I mean, was there anyone with him? No. There was only one person. Is it possible that he lived in seclusion in the Magic Cloud Mountain range? I don't know. When did you meet him? 3 years ago, Chen Hao said. Okay, I have no more questions. Thank you. If you have any questions, just ask. Do you know the old man? He taught me the art of carving, but I don't even know his name. I can't thank him. Chen Hao said. I don't know him. But he might be the person my master is looking for. Because of him, my master stayed in the secular world for more than 100 years until she met me. After teaching me the art of carving, she left. If you want to know, when the 100 Empire ranking is over, I can take you to my master. She should want to see you and ask you personally. Looking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Thank you. Try to get the 4th update before 12. Chapter 168. Okay. Chen Hao agreed without hesitation. At this point, even if Chen Hao did not go, they would still come looking for him. Moreover, Chen Hao was also very curious about the relationship between the nameless old man and his father. Then it's settled. I'll take the blame for you. With your current strength, even if you have that superb combination spiritual weapon, I'm afraid there are several groups that can kill you in seconds. You'd better not show yourself for the time being. If you're exposed, you may be in trouble. Also, don't go searching for spiritual herbs. Those who can reach here are all top experts. If you meet them, they won't be as good as me. Of course, it's also a coincidence that you're related to me. As for the others, I've already killed them. Goodbye. Leng Yihan cupped his fists and said. As soon as he finished speaking, his aura returned to normal. His figure flashed and disappeared in front of Chen Hao. This person is strange. The treasure hunting sword spirit said in Chen Hao's mind. What's strange? I can't tell exactly, but his aura, especially when he's excited, seems to change a lot. In short, it's a little abnormal, a little. Chen Hao also had the same feeling, but he could not tell what was strange. He's very strong. For now, you're probably not as strong as him. What's there to estimate? He has comprehended the spatial quintessence, and his speed is faster than mine. I can't hide from his senses. My carving skills are also inferior to his. Moreover, although he's also a martial emperor, the terrifying aura he emits, especially the light in his eyes, makes me feel like I'm suppressed by absolute power. Chen Hao said with a frown, since he said so, it seems like I'm really lucky. If he didn't take the blame, I would be in big trouble. A few hours later, a large number of cultivators rushed into the ruins. Some areas were still fine, but the areas that Qin Hao and Leng Yihan had searched had no spiritual herbs left. These cultivators were forced to flock to the sides. Qin Hao, on the other hand, found a cave in one of the areas he had plundered and began to cultivate. Shi Yan had comprehended the mysteries of the liquid energy gasification. It was a reversible process. Although there were some differences in the transformation of the gaseous energy into the liquid state, the differences shouldn't be too big. Therefore, Qin Hao did not waste any time before sensing the aura of the ruins. Seeing Leng Yihan, Qin Hao's confidence was boosted, and he became vigilant again. He also understood that he was not the only one with a trump card. The 100 Empire ranking was a place where geniuses gathered. Without sufficient strength, showing off one's ability meant that one could die prematurely. Strength was everything. After Qin Hao immersed himself in cultivation, the other cultivators also entered the state of cultivation in just a few days. No one was willing to waste this excellent opportunity to comprehend the energy of the 5 elements. As for the ruins, they could only be found by chance. It was necessary to grab hold of what was in front of him first. 2 months passed in a flash. Qin Hao still had not sensed the aura of the ruins. He had been immersed in his comprehension and cultivation. After 2 months of tempering, the energy in his dantian had become more condensed and vigorous. It was twice as vigorous as 2 months ago, and there was already a hint of liquefaction. Finally, they began to charge again. This was also the last trial in the endless sea. After 10,000 miles, they would encounter more powerful demonic beasts and demonic beast tides. Once they charged over, they would reach the core of the endless sea and step into the next trial. In the sky above the endless sea, when the ruins area collapsed and all the disciples began to charge again, the ranking on the Black Tower tablet changed again. Leng Yihan was 4th. His ranking rose by 1 place again. Dongfang Ting looked at Qin Hao's name and frowned slightly. According to the trend last time, Qin Hao should be able to rise by several places again, especially since he was the 8th to enter the second ruins area. Unexpectedly, Qin Hao's ranking fell instead of rising, although it was only dropping by 2 places. But it also showed that Qin Hao's performance this time only had a little advantage in speed. In other aspects, he did not show enough fighting strength. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the sea, Qin Hao's speed had increased a lot compared to 2 months ago. However, Qin Hao did not rush to the core area. Even if he reached there earlier, there would be no relics or elixirs to find this time. It was only the exit of the endless sea. Rather than waiting there, it was better to kill demonic beasts in the sea and train himself. After charging through the demonic beast tide with only the fighting strength of a 5th-grade martial grandmaster, Qin Hao began to look for demonic beasts with strong auras. After crazily hunting and challenging dozens of demonic beasts with the fighting strength of an 8th-grade martial grandmaster, more than 2 days had passed. At this time, Qin Hao began to think about the exit of the core area of the endless sea. 3 days' time. This was the last 10,000 miles of the sea to train. Basically, as long as the cultivators were not dead, they could make it. If they could not, they could only walk out of the endless sea. In the sky above the endless sea. Dongfang Ting originally thought that Qin Hao would still be able to enter the core area of the endless sea. However, after waiting for a long time, when a large number of cultivators were rushing in, Qin Hao still did not enter. Seeing that the transportation formation of the core area was about to open and they would step into the next level of training, Qin Hao still did not arrive. Did something happen? Dongfang Ting began to worry. At this moment, the names on the pagoda monument had not changed yet. Therefore, they were not sure about Qin Hao's situation. However, after the previous 2 changes, hundreds of names had disappeared from the pagoda monument. This also meant that hundreds of people had died in the training. Xian also frowned. However, she was feeling very conflicted at this moment. On one hand, she was looking forward to Qin Hao's appearance, but on the other hand, she was a little worried that after Qin Hao appeared, he would not be under her control and enter another sect. She had enjoyed the taste of being the #1 person in the Xuanwu Empire for so many years. She really did not want Qin Hao to take this title away. Being able to enter her sect was naturally the best situation. Leng Yihan, don't think that you can avoid me just because you are fast. You can avoid me, but you can't avoid me forever. There will be a time when we meet in the arena. My people are not people that you can casually kill. In the core transportation formation of the Endless Sea, when a figure passed through the barrier and entered, a peerless expert emitting a powerful aura immediately stared at the figure that entered and snorted coldly with a vicious expression. The core transportation formation of the Endless Sea was different from the previous two ruins. The entire space was only 1,000 feet in radius. Basically, all the cultivators were gathered here, and the information on the token clearly stated that this was the transportation formation to the next level of training. No disciple was allowed to fight here. If there was no such rule, this place would have become a bloody hell by now. Now, this core transportation formation was already densely packed with cultivators. Basically, they were all meditating and adjusting their breathing. After hearing the sudden voice, they immediately looked at the person who had just stepped into the ruins with a trace of surprise and shock. Especially Yu Wuqing and the other four. They even restrained their auras and lowered their heads, only using their eyes to secretly glance at the person who had just arrived. Leng Yihan. At this moment, there was likely not a single disciple that didn't know this name. It was the symbol of terror, the symbol of absolute strength, the symbol of super abnormality. Before the training began, he was only a rank 8 martial emperor. However, in a short period of 3 months, he had brought extreme shock to everyone in the Endless Sea. First, he killed Zhou Xiao, a rank 5 martial ancestor realm cultivator. Then, news of him possessing a top-quality 5 elements fusion spirit artifact spread. After that, news of people being killed by him continuously spread. Furthermore, the people he killed were all experts that made the majority of people shrink back. Even an 8th stage martial ancestor realm expert had died under his sword. Is that so? I am looking forward to seeing how you all will die when we meet in the arena. There are still 6 months of training left. I truly don't know if you all will be able to live past 6 months. Leng Yihan was still in the air. He hadn't even landed yet, but his sharp eyes were already looking at the person who had spoken. His arrogant, disdainful, and cold voice was just like his name. Especially those soul-stirring eyes that exuded a strong murderous aura, it was terrifying to look at. However, Yu Wuqing and the others who were originally secretly glancing at Leng Yihan widened their eyes in shock. This is Leng Yihan. The 5 of them were stupefied, stunned. The aura of the person before them was undoubtedly terrifying and powerful. His appearance was also handsome. However, compared to the Leng Yihan they knew, he was clearly more feminine and less masculine. They were two completely different people, other than sneak attacks, secretly injuring others, and escaping. What else do you know? If you have the guts, fight me head-on. The guy with the powerful aura spoke again. Gao Jianfei, if you have the guts, fight me head-on. Do you really think that our Sky Tyrant Empire's ranking as #1 is just a bluff? Just at this moment, a vigorous voice suddenly sounded from another direction. A tall and mighty figure slowly stood up. In an instant, all the disciples in this space felt as if a mountain suddenly pressed down on their hearts. It was incomparably heavy. On the arena, I, Gao Jianfei, will fight you. What bullshit ranking #1? That's the Empire, not you. Of course, you're only temporarily #1 on the Pagoda Monument. After the arena battle, let's see if you can still be so arrogant. The person called Gao Jianfei, who was the first to speak, said arrogantly. Crash! Following the conversation between the two, the cultivators in the transfer point area were suddenly shocked. Originally, they did not recognize them and only felt the strength of the two. However, at this moment, they knew who they were. Gao Jianfei, the top expert ranked #2 on the Black Pagoda Monument. And the tall and mighty figure who had just stood up was the existence standing at the top of the Black Pagoda Monument, Mang Yi. 9th grade Martial Grandmaster. Senior Mang Yi, I'll settle my own matter. What surprised everyone was that Leng Yihan actually looked at Mang Yi, who had stepped forward to help. His expression was still cold and indifferent as he said indifferently. After he finished speaking, his sword-like eyes looked again at Gao Jianfei. Then, he swept his gaze around and said coldly, if you want to obtain my supreme grade combination spiritual weapon, if you're not afraid of death, then come. Don't worry, I, Leng Yihan, have always been alone. The people of the Sky Tyrant Empire will not interfere. 2 consecutive days of 4 updates. Friends who still have monthly votes, please vote for Wushan. Thank you to Brother Tariff for your 20,000 coins and monthly votes. Thank you to all the brothers and sisters who have donated and voted for me. Thank you. Chapter 169. He's Leng Yihan. Fuck. Who's that brat? At this moment, Yu Wuqing and the others had the urge to vomit blood. As long as one wasn't an idiot, one could be sure that the arrogant, cold, and powerful young man in front of them was the real Leng Yihan. During this period of time, the 5 of them had been on tenterhooks all the time, especially after learning that Leng Yihan had killed several powerful existences. Once there was any news of Leng Yihan's appearance, they would scurry away like rats, fearing that they would encounter him. But now, they suddenly realized that they had been wrong from the beginning. What was even more ridiculous was that Leng Yihan was clearly the scapegoat, but he had never explained himself. Furthermore, it seemed that he really did have a supreme grade 5 elements combination spiritual weapon. Could it be the other one we guessed? Chen Hao. One of them transmitted his voice to the other 4. Xuanwu Empire's Chen Hao. That's right, isn't that little beauty from Xuanwu Empire? Another person transmitted his voice. It must be him. No wonder Tan Tai Lian stopped when she saw that brat and didn't chase after us. Chen Hao, Xuanwu Empire's Chen Hao. Senior brother Yu, what do we do now? That brat hasn't appeared yet, and neither has Tan Tai Lian. Furthermore, although that brat isn't as terrifying as Leng Yihan, he's still very difficult to deal with. One of them said again. Hearing this person's words, Yu Wuqing and the others frowned. Especially when they thought of Chen Hao's silent attack, they felt a chill run down their spines. This time, he must die. Yu Wuqing's eyes flashed with a sinister aura as he transmitted his voice coldly. After saying that, he began to size up the cultivators in the space. After a while, after locking onto his first target, he quietly walked over. Rumble rumble. In the distance, Chen Hao, who was advancing at high speed, sensed the violent energy fluctuations in front of him. It was obvious that a cultivator was fighting a monstrous beast. From the aura of the monstrous beast, it should be a rank 7 martial ancestor realm monstrous beast. It posed no threat to Chen Hao. However, the cultivator who was fighting seemed to have a very weak cultivation. It was obvious that he was being chased by the monstrous beast. The turbulent undercurrents and turbid seawater made it impossible for Chen Hao to see the battle. However, Chen Hao wasn't interested in watching and went straight to the side. Life and death had nothing to do with him. Ah! Just as Chen Hao was about to make a detour, a shrill and angry scream rang out. Clearly, the cultivator who was fleeing and fighting at the same time had encountered an extremely dangerous situation. Just by listening to this scream, one could tell that he was about to die in the hands of this monster. When Chen Hao heard the voice, he frowned and froze. It's her. After a slight hesitation, Chen Hao shook his head. His figure flashed and he rushed over as fast as lightning. In a moment, Tan Tai Lian's figure appeared in front of Chen Hao. What made Chen Hao frown was that Tan Tai Lian was covered in blood. There were dozens of wounds of various sizes on her body. Especially the wound above her heart, which was fatal. The flesh and blood that were turned up was shocking. What made Chen Hao even more shocked was that almost half of Tan Tai Lian's breasts were exposed. As she crazily blocked the attacks of the monstrous beast, they were violently bumping, swaying, and trembling in the water. Her clothes were also torn and tattered. Every wound on her body revealed her naked body. Her snow-white beautiful legs were completely exposed. Her long gown and underwear seemed to have been torn from her thigh to the bottom by the claws of the monstrous beast. Is this monstrous beast the legendary Lei Feng? Chen Hao blinked his eyes. Even though his mind was firm, he still had a headache at this moment. Not daring to think too much, with a so sound, Chen Hao inserted himself between Tan Tai Lian and the demonic beasts as fast as lightning, and struck out with his palm, meeting the demonic beast's huge tail that was sweeping towards him. At the same time, 9 flying daggers flashed strangely. Bang! Puff, 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 the powerful and terrifying palm force directly shook the huge body of the monstrous beast and made it roll back. The 9 flying daggers were like cutting machines. They crisscrossed and continuously went back and forth through the monstrous beast's body. After several slashes, the monstrous beast was cut into pieces. In the blink of an eye, it was completely dead. Change your clothes, and I'll take you away. It's almost time for the transmission point. It's too late. Without looking back, Chen Hao said with his back facing Tan Tai Lian, who was in a daze and had almost exhausted all her energy. Hearing Chen Hao's words, Tan Tai Lian woke up from the shock. At this moment, she, who had completely relied on her willpower to support herself and forget about pain, suddenly felt extremely weak and painful. Her head was dizzy, and she almost fainted. Especially the 5-inch hole in her chest that was pierced by the monstrous beast's fangs, it was even more terrible. On the verge of life and death, Tan Tai Lian had no time to be shy and answered with difficulty. She clenched her silver teeth and endured the piercing pain and weakness. After taking off her tattered clothes, she took out the clothes from the storage ring. It was extremely difficult, but she quickly put them on. The moment she put them on, she relaxed and directly fainted. Fortunately, Chen Hao's figure flashed and he held the unconscious Tan Tai Lian. He said 2 words in his heart that contained 2 meanings. First, fortunately, Tan Tai Lian's willpower was not bad. If she was saved in such a serious situation, normal people would be relieved instantly. In such a situation, she would have fainted immediately. However, although Tan Tai Lian was relieved, she still relied on her willpower to support herself and put on her clothes before fainting. At least, it meant that exposing her body in front of a man was no different from killing her. Second, fortunately, she held on. Otherwise, the hot-blooded Chen Hao would still be tempted by a naked woman, even though she was seriously injured, and it would affect his state of mind. Of course, the most important reason was that Tan Tai Lian, Yang Fan, and the others could be considered as his companions. Although there was no friendship between them, they were from the same empire after all. Otherwise, although the current Chen Hao was no longer any of the people he used to be, he wouldn't mind. In his opinion, a man should follow his heart and follow his nature. When it was time to vent their needs in certain aspects, they naturally had to do so. After taking out a resurrection fruit and stuffing it into Tan Tai Lian's mouth, Chen Hao directly used his energy to shatter it and approached Tan Tai Lian's dantian. His figure flashed and he quickly carried Tan Tai Lian to the core teleportation area of the Endless Sea. Why aren't Xiao Lian and Chen Hao here yet? Could something have happened to them? In the core teleportation area, Yang Fan, Ni Jian Pain, and Li Yifeng had gathered together. Li Yifeng glanced at the 2 of them and frowned slightly. At this moment, their auras had obviously improved tremendously. Chen Hao shouldn't be in trouble. He comprehended the essence of the wind element, so it's definitely enough to protect himself. However, it's hard to say about Tan Tai Lian. Why, are you worried? Yang Fan said calmly. Nonsense. Of course, I'm worried. In the first area of the historical remnant, when I came out, she was gone. I really don't know if she's in danger. If I don't see her here, I'm afraid I was wrong. I shouldn't have entered the historical remnant. Damn it. Li Yifeng said regretfully. His words caused Yang Fan and Ni Jianping to roll their eyes. He actually regretted entering a historical remnant that others yearned for because of a woman. To the two of them, this was completely inconceivable and incomprehensible. Yang Fan shook his head and said, "There's still 2 more hours. I hope she can come back." Every few minutes, there would be a fluctuation in the space. However, to the disappointment of the 3 of them, it was not someone they did not know. At the same time, a few small teams had appeared around Yu Wuqing and the other 4. The strength of each small team was similar to Yu Wuqing and the other 4, and they seemed to be secretly discussing something. As long as there was a fluctuation, these 20 or so people would stare at the person who entered at the same time. Every time they saw Yu Wuqing and the others shaking their heads slightly, the others would withdraw their gazes. Hiss. Hiss. In less than an hour, when the teleportation formation was about to open, there was another fluctuation in the space. Chen Hao. Ah, little Yen. Yang Fan, Li Yifeng, and Ni Jianping immediately stood up and quickly walked toward Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lian, who had just stepped into the core area. At this moment, Tan Tai Lian had recovered her cultivation under the powerful medicinal effect of the resurrection fruit. However, the injuries on her body were not something that could be healed in a short period of time. It's him. We should have known that he's Chen Hao. Tan Tai Lian is obviously training with him. It's him. This kind of aura is too weak. It's just the wind element true essence. If I can kill him, I'll give you some benefits. Of course, the prerequisite is that he really has the spirit weapon you mentioned. One of the young men said casually with a smile on his face. Don't worry. If he didn't comprehend the wind element true essence, how could we possibly reveal such important information to you? The reward doesn't matter. As long as we can kill him and stop him from following us like a ghost. Why are you only back now? Little Yen, where did you go? It took me so long to find you. Why are you with Chen Hao? After the 3 of them came to Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lian's side, Li Yifeng immediately bombarded them with questions. The handsome and spirited Li Yifeng stared at Tan Tai Lian with great concern. We met by chance, Chen Hao said with a smile. He didn't mention Tan Tai Lian's injuries. Tan Tai Lian blushed slightly and avoided Li Yifeng's gaze. I'll heal first. Injured? Are your injuries serious? Li Yifeng asked in surprise. However, Tan Tai Lian didn't say anything else. She sat cross-legged and forcefully suppressed the strange feeling in her heart. She circulated her energy and slowly nourished the wounds on her body. She blushed not because of Li Yifeng's concern, but because she was ashamed of her original thoughts. More or less, she had used her beauty to make Li Yifeng, who had no resistance against women, take good care of her. However, at this moment, she had been enlightened by Chen Hao. Especially after being saved by Chen Hao and seeing her in such a sorry state, her emotions were very complicated. She was a little resistant to Li Yifeng's enthusiasm. Chapter 170. Second update. Now 34 monthly votes. 6 more to go. Dark Mountain will have 4 updates today. Dark Mountain will continue to fight. If you can reach 60, Dark Mountain will have 5 updates. We will complete it without sleep or rest. Come on. Why are you so late? Just as Chen Hao also sat down cross-legged, a condensed voice lightly floated into his ears. I killed a few more monsters. We're waiting here anyway. Chen Hao was slightly taken aback. He glanced at Leng Yihan, who had a cold expression on his face and was completely isolated from the rest of the group. Chen Hao sent a voice transmission to him. I'm afraid I can't completely take the blame for you. Those who want to kill with a borrowed knife should know that you're not me. So, be careful. It's okay. This is better. Chen Hao's lips curled up slightly as he replied without changing his expression. The moment he entered, he saw Yu Wuqing and the others. Just from their eyes, he could tell that they knew the truth. Although Qin Hao did not see them, he was sure that Leng Yihan had exposed his identity here. Moreover, not far from Yu Wuqing, there was a girl who was staring at him with bright eyes. She was obviously an interested girl. Did she secretly do something to him? If Qin Hao only had a 9th-grade spirit martial dual body, he probably would not have been able to sense the girl's subtle movements. However, Qin Hao's powerful merged soul perception clearly captured it. It was definitely the middle-grade spirit martial sect girl who left an imperceptible restriction on his body. Hiss. Less than an hour after Qin Hao and Tan Tai Lian arrived at the core teleportation area, the space above them suddenly began to fluctuate. Waves of mysterious aura were emitted. Immediately, a huge pillar of light about 100 feet in diameter poured down and appeared in the core teleportation area. Go! Whoosh! Whoosh! Instantly, countless figures, some alone and some in groups, flew into the pillar of light. The moment they entered, they disappeared from everyone's sight. Tan Tai Lian hurriedly stood up. Her clear eyes looked at Qin Hao at first glance. However, when she saw that Qin Hao was cold and indifferent, and he didn't even look at her, she bit her lips slightly as a wisp of determination flashed through her eyes. Let's go together. However, contrary to Tan Tai Lian, Li Yifeng, Yang Fan, and Ni Jianpei's expectations, the cold and calm Qin Hao frowned slightly and looked at the four of them. He directly said, "Because of me, you will be implicated. So, let's go together." What do you mean? Li Yifeng, Yang Fan, and Ni Jianpei asked. But Tan Tai Lian only looked at Qin Hao. I'll explain after we go. They were very strong. There were quite a few 6th rank and 7th rank martial grandmasters. And you guys, for now. Go. Let's go. Qin Hao ignored the four people's shock and said straightforwardly. Tan Tai Lian only hesitated slightly. Then, she took the lead and walked to Qin Hao's side. She directly grabbed Qin Hao's arm. This made Li Yifeng, who originally wanted to pull Tan Tai Lian, slightly stunned. Especially when Tan Tai Lian grabbed it with both hands. Anyone could see that she did not want to be pulled by others. After being stunned for a moment, Li Yifeng smiled and reached out to shake hands with Yang Fan and Ni Jianpei. Yang Fan smiled at Qin Hao and held Qin Hao's hand. Whoosh! The five of them instantly flashed into the transportation light pillar. Go! Follow! As soon as Qin Hao's group of 5 entered the transportation light pillar, Yu Wuqing and the other small teams with ulterior motives rushed toward the transportation light pillar with their fastest speed. After a moment, the entire transportation area was empty. With a rumble, it collapsed. The turbulent seawater spread over. The trial in the endless sea had finally ended. The Xinwu Relic. 10,000 years ago, the ruins of the Xinwu Empire. In historical records, it was the only super empire that could unify nearly 1,000 dynasties in the eastern continent. It was also a super existence that could compete with the sects of the cultivation world purely by relying on the power of the empire. 10,000 years later, the Xinwu Empire had become an ancient relic. It was also the last stop of the 6-month trial for the disciples of the 100 Empire ranking. The Xinwu relic stretched for tens of millions of miles. It was vast and boundless. It would open once every 2 years. Ever since the sects of the cultivation world discovered it, in the past 100 years, almost every disciple who entered for the trial would have a good harvest. Moreover, the disciples who participated in the trial were all different. It was like a region that opened once every 2 years. Moreover, this time, not only were the disciples of the 100 Empire ranking qualified to enter, but also the low-level outer sect disciples of the dozens of sects that organized the 100 Empire ranking. The condition to enter the Xinwu relic was that one had to be below the martial ancestor realm. In other words, only disciples in the acquired realm were qualified to enter. Martial sages, martial gods, and other Khanate realm disciples would be excluded even if they stood in the transportation formation. No matter how talented they were not qualified. The moment Chen Hao and the others stepped into the transportation formation, the golden names on the black pagoda monument flickered and changed again. Dongfang Ting's eyes widened as she stared at the black pagoda monument. After the light disappeared, she was worried about Chen Hao's life and death. She did not even bother to look at the names at the top. She started from the 30th place and quickly searched for Chen Hao's name. The more she looked, the more nervous she became. She saw Yang Fan, Ni Jianpain, and Li Yifeng. After Li Yifeng, she quickly found Tan Tai Lian, who had risen a few ranks. However, she still did not see Chen Hao's name. Dead. Chen Hao actually died in there. Dongfang Ting's expression was extremely regretful as she said sluggishly. Although she had not interacted much with Chen Hao and had only helped him train in the Cloud Mountain Range for 3 months, she was very fond of Chen Hao's talent, comprehension, temperament, and character. In particular, her nephew, Dongfang Jun, was on good terms with Chen Hao. Therefore, she naturally doted on him. Since they were both from the Zhenyuan kingdom, she naturally hoped that Chen Hao would be as strong as possible. But now, this Chen Hao is indeed powerful. He actually rose to the 15th place. Just as Dongfang Ting was feeling disappointed and upset, the old man beside her suddenly said to her. What? Dongfang Ting asked in shock. Then, she looked directly at the top of the black pagoda monument. Chen Hao. The 2 golden words were astonishingly ranked at the 15th place, shining brightly. How could this be? How could this be? In the short 10,000-mile sea region, in only 3 days' time, Chen Hao was most definitely not locked onto by the mirror image below him because he had followed a large number of cultivators into the teleportation zone. How could his ranking not only not increase, but increase by so much? Did he kill experts? That seemed to be the only possibility. Otherwise, Dongfang Ting was unable to imagine how many monstrous beasts Chen Hao could have killed in a short 3 days' time. How many monstrous beasts could he have killed in order to increase his ranking? One must know that the higher one's ranking was, the more difficult it would be to increase one's ranking. Yet, Chen Hao had actually increased his ranking to the 15th place. There was only a difference of 5 places. Chen Hao, who had only started training as a rank 8 martial emperor, was already qualified to become a seeded contestant. Hiss. In the distorted space, Chen Hao and the others appeared in an unfamiliar world at the same time. Feeling the ancient era's aura assaulting his face, and staring at the vast and boundless remnant space, information about the divine martial remnant appeared in Chen Hao's mind. The divine martial remnant contained countless opportunities, mechanisms, formations, restrictions, and barriers. They were everywhere. Countless treasures and cultivation techniques of the divine martial empire that ruled the entire eastern continent 10,000 years ago were left behind. Furthermore, the information from the title plate allowed Chen Hao to understand that the sect's low-level Hotian realm disciples would also enter the divine martial remnant. This meant that in this place, his competitors were not only the disciples on the 100 Empire ranking. Divine Martial Remnant. Chen Hao's black eyes revealed an incomparably sharp battle intent as he said softly. His aura also involuntarily began to spread out. This caused Yang Fan, Li Yifeng, and Ni Jianpain, who were beside him, to open their eyes wide in shock. Only Tan Tai Lian was relatively calm. After all, Tan Tai Lian knew that the monstrous beast that had nearly taken her life was easily dealt with by Chen Hao in less than a second. Furthermore, when she returned to the core teleportation area and woke up, she witnessed Chen Hao's strength with her own eyes. Then she thought about how Yu Wuqing and the others had seen Chen Hao flee like a rat with his head in his hands. Although she didn't know why, in her eyes, Chen Hao was so powerful that he surpassed her by far. Chen Hao. What did you mean when you said that you might implicate us? After a brief moment of shock, Li Yifeng took the lead to ask. I killed Zhou Shao of the Xiongfeng Empire, Chen Hao said calmly. What? His words caused the 4 people's expressions to change drastically. Yu Wuqing and the other 4 from the Crystal Jade Empire who saw me kill Zhou Xiao wanted to snatch my spiritual weapon. Unfortunately, they did not have the ability to do so. Therefore, there was a rumor that Leng Yihan had a supreme grade 5 elements combination spiritual weapon. They wanted to kill with a borrowed knife, but they mistook me for Leng Yihan. Now, they should know that I am not Leng Yihan. Qin Hao said calmly. Yang Fan, Li Yifeng, Ni Jianpain, and Tan Tai Lian were all shocked to the extreme. When they heard about the 5 elements combination spiritual weapon, they thought of Qin Hao. However, Qin Hao's spiritual weapon was clearly not a supreme grade spiritual weapon, so they did not think much of it. But now, Leng Yihan. When he was in the teleportation area, he quarreled with Gao Jianfei, the second-ranked expert. So, Yu Wuqing and the others must know that they made a mistake. But it is very strange. Why didn't Leng Yihan expose them? Just now, he arrogantly told all the cultivators in the space that if they wanted his supreme grade 5 elements combination spiritual weapon, they could go ahead and snatch it. Yang Fan was the first to frown and say, Leng Yihan is very strong. He did not expose it because he is confident that no one can snatch anything from him. Instead, they will become his training targets. Qin Hao said. Let's go. You should all have a spiritual imprint left on your bodies by a purposeful expert. Let's find a place first and see if I can break it. If you can, the 4 of you can cultivate together or separately. Relatively speaking, it is safer. I can also do whatever I want. Begging for monthly votes. Chapter 171. 1 vote short. Today, Wushan will have 4 chapters. 21 votes short. Today, Wushan will have 5 chapters. Can you make Wushan 5 chapters? Wushan is ready. 1 bottle of essential balm, 1 pot of strong tea, several packs of cigarettes, no sleep, no rest, fight to the end. Brothers and sisters, if you dare to come, I dare to increase. Come. Monthly votes. Hearing Qin Hao's words, the 4 of them had complicated expressions. This trouble was indeed not something they could resist. If they were really left with a spiritual imprint, then how could they resist against rare geniuses of 5th, 6th, or even 7th grade martial ancestors? Even Yang Fan, who had comprehended some of the true essence of the wind attribute, would find it difficult to survive, let alone Li Yifeng, Ni Jianpain, and Tan Tai Lian. However, at this moment, they could not blame Qin Hao. They could only blame themselves for coming from the same empire. Qin Hao could ignore them and leave alone, but Qin Hao did not do so. At this moment, they could only rely on Qin Hao, who they felt was unfathomable. Clouds and mist lingered, and an ancient aura filled the air. Accompanied by the occasional roar of demonic beasts, the 5 of them flew towards the core of the ruins. Qin Hao was not sure how far the spiritual imprint could reach. With the 4 of them by his side, if those people rushed over, he would be fine, but Tan Tai Lian and the others would be in danger. When the teleportation light pillars teleported cultivators, they would be separated by a certain distance and teleported to the periphery of the ruins. If they were lucky, they would not find them for 10 days to half a month. If they were unlucky, they might arrive in a few hours. Therefore, the best method now was to find a place with restrictions, enter it, and use the protection of the restrictions to buy some time to erase the spiritual imprints on the 4 of them. Whoosh! 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 More than 10 minutes later, an ancient city with a radius of 100 miles appeared in the eyes of Qin Hao and the others. Just by looking at the scale of the city, it was definitely the ruins of a provincial capital. However, according to the information in his mind, this city was probably just a small county in the Xinwu Empire 10,000 years ago. Let's do it here. Qin Hao said in a deep voice after sensing the dense qi above the city. Just as he finished speaking, he frowned and said, "Someone is coming." Hearing Qin Hao's words, the 4 of them were slightly stunned. Their gazes quickly swept through the surroundings, but they did not sense any aura. "Don't worry about it. It's just a third stage martial great master, 2 second stage and 2 first stage cultivators. Are you from the Clear Stream Empire? Chen Hao asked again after a while. However, after he finished speaking, Chen Hao frowned when he saw the faces of the 5 figures. At this moment, Yang Fan and the other 3 also saw the newcomer's face. Aren't they from Xuanwu Empire? Nice to meet you. Ha ha ha. A hearty laugh suddenly came from the mouth of a handsome young man in the lead. His face was full of smiles and his eyes shone with a trace of excitement. The Qinglu Empire was one of the empires that bordered the Xuanwu Empire. The 2 empires were always at odds with each other. Under normal circumstances, as long as the empires bordered each other, they would not be able to coexist peacefully. Even if they did coexist peacefully, it was because of the pressure from the other empires that they temporarily formed a united front. Once the threat was eliminated, disputes over territory and benefits would appear. It was clear that Chen Hao and the others had obtained the detailed information of these people from Mu Qing. Similarly, the other party also had the detailed information of Chen Hao and the others. However, they did not expect to coincidentally meet them just as they entered the remnant. A second stage martial great master, 2 first stage martial great masters, a little beauty with the cultivation of a 9th stage martial emperor and a rank 8 martial emperor. TSK, your Xuanwu Empire is truly getting worse with each passing year. I truly did not expect you to still be alive with this kind of strength. Very good, very good. It seems that you left them especially for us. Ha! Little beauty, let me deal with them. Just at this moment, a young man with the cultivation of a first stage martial great master said as he stared at Tan Tai Lien with a trace of lust in his eyes. Idiot! Chen Hao said with a calm expression. As he spoke, his body immediately disappeared. 3 seconds. In merely 3 seconds, Yang Fan and the others who were prepared for a great battle were dumbstruck as they looked at the tragic scene before them. 3 seconds ago, the 5 geniuses who were incomparably arrogant and complacent were now like tofu. They did not even have the chance to resist before being dismembered. Let's go. After Chen Hao threw the 5 storage rings into his Xianhuang ring, he had an indifferent expression. It was as if he had not done anything at all. His body moved and he took the lead to fly toward the city below. As Yang Fan and the others looked at Chen Hao's figure, the shock in their hearts was unimaginable. They simply could not understand how Chen Hao had accomplished this. Those 5 geniuses, especially those rank 3 martial emperors, were definitely not people that they could contend against. Likely, only Yang Fan, who had comprehended half of the true essence of the wind attribute, would be able to barely fight against them. The outcome of the battle was still unknown. However, Chen Hao had killed 5 people in an instant as if he were killing chickens. Countless large and small cities stood in great numbers within the 10,000 miles radius of the remnant. They were no longer as glorious as they were 10,000 years ago. There were no signs of human habitation, only countless monstrous beasts roaming about. It was a desolate and frightening place filled with a bleak and ancient aura. At the moment when Chen Hao and the others entered the ancient city, several thousand miles away, at the edge of the remnant, a total of 24 figures were gathered together. They were staring at a young woman standing in the middle of the group. Although this young woman was not exceptionally beautiful, her figure was extremely alluring. Her full breasts were clearly 2 sizes larger than those of ordinary women. Her waist was slender, her buttocks were perky, and her legs were long and slender. She appeared extremely enchanting. However, there were no origin energy fluctuations around her. Only the space between her eyebrows was flickering with colorless and formless energy fluctuations. Among the 23 people beside her, there were 4 young women. The 4 young women were still fine. However, at least half of the male disciples' gazes were focused on the young woman's towering breasts. Fan Yin, how is it? After 2 minutes, when Yu Wuqing sensed that the young woman's spirit fluctuations had disappeared, he asked Fan Yin. They're lucky. For the time being, they're not within my detection range. Let's search along the edge of the remnant. The detection range of my tracing seal is within 500 miles. As long as they don't run all the way, I believe it won't take long to find them. Let's go. The enchanting young woman called Fan Yin said confidently. Will they discover that you left a tracing seal? One of the young men, a grade 7 martial ancestor realm, frowned and said, if they discover it, they can escape from the remnant. If we search at the edge, I'm afraid we won't find anything. Impossible. Unless they have an expert of grade 7 martial ancestor realm or above beside them, even a grade 9 martial ancestor would not be able to discover them. If you don't trust me, you can try it on yourself. Fan Yin raised her eyebrows slightly and said with a trace of arrogance. That won't be necessary. Since that's the case, let's go. Okay. Let's go. Whoosh. 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 A total of 24 people instantly turned into streaks of flowing light and started to fly along the periphery of the remnant. They would stop for a moment every few hundred miles. If they did not find anything, they would continue forward. The sky was overcast. The sun, moon, and stars could not be seen. Chen Hao and the other 4 people directly landed in front of a huge palace in the center of the city. The dense and mysterious restriction formation shrouded the entire palace. After 10,000 years, it still emitted an extremely powerful aura. Not bad. If we rely on brute force, I'm afraid it won't be that easy to enter. If this restriction formation has the ability to block spiritual imprints, it would naturally be better. Chen Hao's mind slowly merged with the myriad of things in the world. He sensed the restriction formation in the city and said, don't use brute force to break the restriction formation. Just follow me. Okay. At this moment, the 4 people could no longer imagine where Chen Hao's ability came from. However, they were already convinced in their hearts. They all nodded and replied. Chen Hao took the lead and brought the 4 people to the huge city gate. At the same time, the space between his eyebrows and his palm emitted a majestic energy fluctuation. Especially the energy fluctuation between his eyebrows, it once again made Tan Tai Lian and the other 3 people dumbfounded. Tan Tai Lian especially did not expect Chen Hao's mental energy to be so majestic. It was no longer a secret that Chen Hao was a dual cultivator of martial arts and mental energy. After all, Chen Hao was their opponent in the arena back then. However, what they understood was that Chen Hao had given up on martial arts. Moreover, from the beginning to the end, he had not shown how strong his mental energy cultivation was. The only thing he had shown was that he had extraordinary control over his origin energy. This was naturally related to his mental energy that was stronger than ordinary martial artists. However, at this moment, Tan Tai Lian realized that the mental energy fluctuation between Chen Hao's eyebrows was several times stronger than hers. 1 minute. Between the two of them, a total of 5 minutes had passed. Rumble. The tall and sturdy city gate actually emitted a strange fluctuation and rumbled open on its own. Quick. Chen Hao pulled Tan Tai Lian and led the way in. After Yang Fan and the other 2 people entered, the city gate closed again. What surprised Chen Hao and the other 4 was that when the restriction was restored, the entire space was plunged into complete darkness. It was so dark that one could not see one's own fingers, but it was filled with majestic and vigorous energy. Every breath of this energy made Chen Hao feel hot all over. It was the same for Yang Fan, Li Yifeng, and Ni Jianpain. However, Tan Tai Lian's mental energy was shaken. As the surging heat flowed into her dantian, she actually felt a strange feeling. It was as if her soul had started to tremble at this moment and was being baptized by the heat flow. Her 6 senses became extremely clear, and her perception was magically strengthened by several times. Phew! Pure yang. At this moment, the probing sword spirit's exclamation sounded in Chen Hao's mind. Following which, this fellow withdrew all of its aura and instantly disappeared from Chen Hao's senses. Pure yang. Chen Hao thought to himself. So comfortable. Tan Tai Lian could not help but say softly. Comfortable? It's so suffocating, and you still say it's comfortable. Yin and yang blend. This ancient city is filled with pure yang energy. She has a pure yin body, so of course it's comfortable. Alright, let's continue going deeper. If we can break the mental imprint on your body, it's not bad for you to cultivate here. However, the prerequisite is that no one comes to destroy the restriction. Otherwise, this pure yang energy will probably disappear. Qin Hao said calmly. The heat in his body instantly disappeared when he activated the 9 revolving heavenly sun technique. Third update, Dark Mountain continues to fight. Requesting monthly votes. Recommendation votes. Many thanks to Tariff for once again tipping me with 10,000 coins and monthly votes. Congratulations on being promoted to sect leader Ao Tian. Thank you. At the same time, thank you to all the brothers and sisters who voted. There are still 21 votes to go. Requesting monthly votes. Requesting 5th update. Chapter 172. 4th update. For more votes and it's the 5th update. 24 votes and it's the 6th update. 2 more hours to midnight, how much can we get? Dark Mountain is ready for a sleepless battle. Come on. Begging for monthly votes. Begging for an outburst. Inside the huge palace, Qin Hao relied on his near-death experience in Xianhuang ancient city to gain a deep understanding of mechanisms and formations. Coupled with his freakish research ability, he was able to draw inferences about other things from one instance and master them through a comprehensive study of them. What's more, this palace was a legacy left behind by cultivators of the Hotian realm. No matter how profound and powerful the restrictions were, they were ultimately limited. Therefore, although it was difficult, Qin Hao still managed to overcome all obstacles. In the pitch-black space, he led Tan Tai Lian and the other 3 through one formation after another. After a full 4 hours, they finally stepped in front of the last door at the core of the palace. None of the restrictions were broken by brute force. The aura of the entire ruins was perfectly preserved. Moreover, as the 5 of them went deeper, the pure yang energy in the air became more and more vigorous. Tan Tai Lian's beautiful little face became more and more spirited and excited. However, even though Qin Hao had successfully cultivated the 9 revolving heavenly sun technique, he was unable to completely drive away the heat in his heart. As for Yang Fan, Li Yifeng, and Ni Jian Pain, they were even more unbearable. They had already begun to circulate their yuan qi. As they advanced, they painfully tempered the pure yang energy that entered their bodies. Although it was painful, the 3 of them were very excited. This was because they knew very well what kind of amazing results would be if they cultivated in this environment. 99, 81. We've already passed 80. This should be the last one. If I'm not wrong, there must be something pure yang in this ruin. Qin Hao said softly as he sensed the restrictions in front of him. Qin Hao, how do you know everything? It's said that these formations and restrictions can only be broken by those in the Hotian realm. And you? Li Yifeng said after hearing Qin Hao's words, he endured the heat in his body. I have comprehended how to operate the 5 elements and the yin and yang of heaven and earth. All I lack is energy. Naturally, I can break the array. As Qin Hao spoke, he reached out and pressed the door in front of him. The last restriction was undoubtedly the most powerful one. Qin Hao didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. His mind was completely immersed in the profound restriction, comprehending its mysteries bit by bit. Time passed by minute. After a quarter of an hour, when there were still no signs of breaking, Li Yifeng, Ni Jian Pain, and Yang Fan could no longer hold on. They all sat down cross-legged and began to refine the pure yang energy that was madly pouring in. Only Tan Tai Lian was in high spirits as she stared at the focused Qin Hao. An hour passed in the blink of an eye. At this moment, Qin Hao was drenched in sweat. Under the light of the energy, one could clearly see red smoke billowing from the top of Chen Hao's head. His entire body was like a furnace, emitting a majestic heat and a strong masculine scent. At the beginning, Tan Tai Lien didn't feel anything. But as time passed, Tan Tai Lien, who was standing beside Chen Hao, began to blush. For some reason, she, who was in high spirits, gradually felt that Chen Hao was infinitely attractive to her. That feeling was like the attraction of yin and yang. It made her want to throw herself into Chen Hao's arms and hug him tightly. Chen Hao, who was immersed in breaking the array, didn't feel anything. But Tan Tai Lien couldn't help but get closer and closer. Her clear eyes gradually revealed a kind of heat break. Seeing that Tan Tai Lien was getting closer and closer to Chen Hao suddenly let out a clear shout. In an instant, energy surged out from his body. Rumble, the thick and solid metal door slowly opened. At this moment, streaks of fiery red light scattered out, instantly illuminating the palace outside the door. It was like a red sea, and the dense pure yang energy could be seen violently fluctuating with the naked eye. Ah! Almost at the same time, Tan Tai Lien suddenly woke up. She screamed and instantly took a few steps back. Her little face turned red. What are you doing? Chen Hao looked at Tan Tai Lien, who had a strange expression, and said in surprise. No. Nothing. Tan Tai Lien hurriedly avoided Chen Hao's gaze and said. It's open. At this moment, Yang Fan and the other two also opened their eyes and said with a trace of surprise. And, let's go in. After Chen Hao finished speaking, he took the lead and stepped through the door. Tan Tai Lien and the other three hurriedly followed him in. Following which, the door closed with a rumble. Phew! What a dense pure yang energy! Chen Hao, the treasures here are yours. We can just cultivate. I can't help it. Li Feng said with a pained and excited expression. After saying that, his figure flashed and like lightning, he appeared in a corner of the huge space and sat down cross-legged to cultivate. Yang Fan and Ni Jianpain did the same. You should cultivate too. Chen Hao glanced at Tan Tai Lien and said. Oh. After Tan Tai Lien responded, she also sat down cross-legged, regained her refreshed appearance, and entered a state of cultivation. Unlike Li Feng and the other two, when the pure yang energy entered Tan Tai Lien's body, it was not absorbed by her. It only circulated in her body once, making Tan Tai Lien feel extremely comfortable. It was as if her soul had been baptized time and time again. However, the strange feeling she had towards Chen Hao just now also became stronger and stronger. This made Tan Tai Lien feel a trace of uneasiness in her heart. Especially just now, if it wasn't for Chen Hao's loud shout and suddenly breaking the restriction, she was afraid. Why am I like this? Could it be the influence of this pure yang energy? Tan Tai Lien thought to herself. Such emotions should never appear in her. She was very sure that, at least for now, she did not have any fantasies about the matters between men and women. This was the golden age for cultivation. How could she waste it on whispering sweet nothings in front of flowers under the moonlight? Unable to understand, Tan Tai Lien hurriedly focused her mind. Her eyes focused on her nose and her nose focused on her heart. Soon, she was immersed in cultivation. She inhaled and exhaled the pure yang energy in the air to see if she could absorb some. What she did not expect was that when she started cultivating, as the pure yang energy she inhaled and exhaled increased, her soul began to tremble. An unprecedented state of clarity became stronger and stronger. This feeling even made Tan Tai Lien think that she had always been in a muddle-headed state. Gradually, as her soul became clearer and clearer, a sliver of enlightenment appeared in Tan Tai Lien's mind, as if the clouds had been pushed aside to reveal the sun and moon. Hiss. Oh. Chen Hao, who was also immersed in capturing the spiritual brand on his body, suddenly opened his eyes in surprise and looked in Tan Tai Lien's direction. At the same time, Li Feng, Yang Fan and Ni Jianpain also opened their eyes in shock. In the huge space, with Tantai as the core, the pure yang energy in the air surged into her body. However, it did not seem to stop. It went in from the top of her head and emitted from the pores all over her body, causing her clothes to swell up. At the same time, a pure and majestic chi began to shine from between Tantai eyebrows. Her smooth forehead was like a heart, and there was a thumping sound. Is she about to break through to the intense zone level? The combination of yin and yang seems to be very useful. She is the one who benefits the most. Chen Hao said softly. After saying that, he did not pay any more attention to her and once again immersed himself in solving the almost imperceptible spiritual brand. Who? Just as Chen Hao was comprehending something, a gust of wind suddenly blew in the entire space. There was an even more terrifying fluctuation, forcing Chen Hao and the other three to open their eyes in surprise. What shocked the four of them was that at this moment, Tantai was actually floating in the air. Her clothes and hair were fluttering, and a pure and majestic spiritual energy filled the entire space like a vast ocean. This kind of aura clearly indicated that she had broken through to the intense zone level. However, this was not what shocked Chen Hao and the other three. What really shocked them was that below Tantai there was a monster that seemed to be completely condensed from flames. Vermilion bird. The appearance of this monster was the legendary vermilion bird. The pinnacle of the fire attribute, the vermilion bird that could burn everything in the world. The raging flames rose and enveloped Tantai. The temperature of the entire space increased by many times. Even Chen Hao was forced to use his protective gang qi to block the rolling heat. However, Tantai was clearly in the core of the flames, but she was safe and sound. Divine Beast Vermilion Bird, Ni Jianpei's expression was shocked, and his voice trembled as he spoke. As the first disciple of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall of the Xuanwu Empire New Show Hall, no one knew better than him what this scene meant. The restrictions of the 5 halls of the Xuanwu Empire New Show Hall were formed by the experts of the cultivation world. If an outsider wanted to forcefully break through the restrictions of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, it would condense into a vermilion bird phantom and turn the person who forcefully broke through the restrictions into ashes. He had seen this with his own eyes. However, at this moment, the aura of the vermilion bird that appeared below Tantai was much stronger than the vermilion bird phantom that appeared last time. Hiss. At this moment, something strange happened again. Tantai glabella once again shone with a majestic and terrifying spiritual energy. At the same time, a pure and vigorous spiritual energy was released from her glabella and connected with the vermilion bird below her like a tentacle. In an instant, an illusory figure began to condense in front of Tantai. At the same time, Tantai suddenly waved her slender hand in the air. 3 strange flame-like energies seemed to tear through the void and flew toward Li Yifeng, Yang Fan, and Ni Jianpei at lightning speed. Ah! The 3 of them let out a scream at the same time. Then, with 3 plop sounds, the 3 of them strangely lost consciousness and fell to the ground. A dense aura instantly enveloped the 3 of them. What made Chen Hao widen his eyes was that the 3 of them actually disappeared from this space. Tantai, what are you doing? Chen Hao instantly widened his eyes in shock and shouted at Tantai. Hiss! 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 Chen Hao had just finished speaking when Tantai's closed eyes suddenly opened. In an instant, Chen Hao seemed to see an endless amount of flames. It was as if the stars in the universe were burning and shot into his eyes. The scorching and terrifying temperature instantly caused Chen Hao's body to burn like flames and rise up uncontrollably. 4th update. Thank you, Wuxia Brother Drunken Love, for your great rewards and comments. Thank you. Brothers and sisters who have monthly votes, vote for me. Let Wushan continue to fight. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.